Hello, everyone. Thank you and welcome to the February CEC 20 meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:01. Joyce, can you take attendance, please?
So this is Joyce. We're going to start February CEC council meeting. Steve Stowe,
Here.
John,
Here.
Elizabeth, Joyce here, Mei Chuan here. We don't have Van Min.
Yes.
You heard of it.
Here. Maya. Lisa,
I haven't heard.
Maya. Here. Tamala here. Kevin.
Here.
Four cheers, Steve.
Good, and we have quorum 7, so we can, it's an official meeting. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. As always at our meetings, we have interpretation available in Arabic, Mandarin, and Spanish. You should see video of those interpreters and you should see their names in the chat. I will now have them introduce themselves and provide instructions for anyone who needs interpretation services. Could our Arabic interpreter please make your announcement?
على السادة الراغبين في الاستماع إلى الترجمة باللغة العربية الاتصال بالرقم 347-966-4114 وبعد ذلك إدخال الرمز 958-396-168 وبعد ذلك علامة الشباك وبعد ذلك يرجى تفعيل زر كتم الصوت ميوت. مرة أخرى على السادة الراغبين للاستماع إلى الترجمة باللغة العربية الاتصال بالرقم 347-966-4114 وبعد ذلك إدخال الرمز 958-396-168 وبعد ذلك علامة الشباك. Arabic announcement has been completed.
Thank you. Could our Mandarin interpreter please introduce yourself?
今天晚上大家好。今天晚上的会议呢，我们有中文翻译。如果你需要中文翻译的，请拨347-966-4114。打完这个电话之后，请打 ID 号码251-126-176井号键。我再重复一次，347-966-4114之后打完251-126-176井号键。谢谢。
Thank you. And could our Spanish interpreter please introduce yourself?
Buenas tardes. Para acceder a la línea española para interpretación por teléfono, marque primero el 347-966-4114 y luego ingrese 845-181 signo numeral.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, if everyone can try to remember to speak slower than usual.
Excuse me. This is a Mandarin interpreter Ricky. I cannot get in line. Can you release me to the line?
Kevin, can you take care of that?
Yeah.
Thanks. And could someone here, maybe is CEC members, all your devices should be muted.
Sophia, 你聽唔聽到我講啊？可以了，現在 OK 了。
Ricky, is everything okay? Hey, Elizabeth, can you mute your phone?
Yeah, everything was okay. Yeah, I already get in the line. Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thanks. Okay. Please try to remember to speak a little bit slower than usual
Vamos a
as we
recordar
have
de hablar un poco más lento que
simultaneous
porque
Spanish, thank you, simultaneous interpretation throughout the meeting. And as usual, we will have public speaking at tonight's meeting. There will be 2 public speaking sessions. One will be at the beginning of the meeting, and the other will be at the end of the meeting, directly before the resolution. You can sign up to speak in public in person on the sign-up sheet. Here, and it's right at the front of the room. You can also sign up online using the form. Kevin will post that link. That link should be in the chat, and Kevin will periodically post that link in the chat. It is also available on our website. And then lastly, we will take, if anyone is online and when it's time for public speaking, we will take raised hands for public speaking. Okay. To kick off the meeting tonight, we are here at PS 939. We thank Principal Georgia Musarolas for hosting us here. And we will now have the pledge and color guard from PS 939 to kick off the meeting. Everyone could rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one
Thank you so much, color guard. The agenda for tonight's meeting. Kevin, are you able to share the screen for that? So as I mentioned, we're going to start with a public speaking session. These times are, these are merely sort of planning estimates. We're going to, the public speaking sessions will both be longer than what's indicated here. Then we'll have report of District 20 Superintendent. The resolution will be after the second public speaking session. And then I'll have a brief comment, and then we'll have the second public speaking session, followed by the resolution, and then adjourn the meeting. I need to take a quick last look and make some welcoming comments to individuals who are here. I just want to make a couple of introductory welcomes. I know that we've been joined by a number of elected officials or representatives from elected offices tonight. State Assembly Member Robert Carroll is here, and as is our practice, we will allow elected officials to speak before the public speaking starts. So in a moment, we'll if Assembly Member Carroll would like to speak, he's welcome to. I see also in the room Basil Kapitanakis from State Assemblyman Michael Tanousis's office, representing City Councilman Justin Brannan. Toni Krupchen is here with us, as she often is, and I believe I saw as well, I believe it's Allison Hirsch from City Comptroller Brad Lander's office is here. And if I'm missing anyone at the moment, I apologize. but we do appreciate our elected officials taking an interest in District 20 and CEC 20 meetings. And please notify me if any of you, and if any other elected officials join and would like to speak. So with that being said, now before our first public speaking session, if State Assembly Member Robert Carroll would like to speak. Mr. Carroll, can you hear me? And if so, would you be interested in saying a few words?
I can hear you, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
And
Thank
actually,
you.
actually pause one moment. We're going to put a microphone to one of the laptops so everyone in the room can hear you. We can set that up, right? Okay, hold on 1 second, Assembly Member. 1 second. Tell me when you guys are good. And I should mute my laptop. Yeah.
Are we ready, Steve? Fantastic. Good evening. I'm Assembly Member Robert Carroll, and it's wonderful to address the CEC tonight. I wanted to stop by. I do represent parts of District 20, PS 179, Junior High School 62, PS 134, as well as the Urban Assembly Academy, I believe are all in District 20. And I wanted to reach out because I also sit on the Mayor's Literacy Advisory Council. And for the last number of years, I have not only spoken with the Mayor and the Chancellor about the change in our literacy curriculum in our public schools, but have passed legislation on the state level to make sure that we adopt science of reading standards for our elementary schools so that we can have best practices moving forward in each one of our schools, have good professional development, and make sure that all of our children are fluid and fluent readers. And the reason I care tremendously about this, I was diagnosed with dyslexia at PS 230 when I was 6 years old. And the interventions and supports that I received after that diagnosis changed my life, my academic career, and allowed me to become a successful student and adult. That being said, I do also want to make sure, my mom was a New York City public school teacher for 20 years, a reading teacher at PS 372, that we are listening to parents as we're making this big shift and this big change, that we hold both with fidelity the ideas that are rooted in the science of reading and the 5 pillars of literacy, but also understand that we want to have a progressive, thoughtful education that is helping all students and is being sensitive to all students, parents, and teachers' needs, and making sure that we can both have a fulfilling and effective curriculum that is both rooted in the science, but also allows for some divergence and isn't completely always uniform. And so I do hope, I know some parents have reached out to me over the last number of weeks who are going to talk about the input that they would like to see in their grammar schools and middle schools. And I hope that we can come up with some compromises and make sure that we're able to both fulfill the goals that Chancellor Banks has set forth in changing the trajectory of our literacy education. And we really do have a literacy crisis in our state, but also hear out from parents, teachers, and students about what's working, what's not working, and how we can make this program work for all. And so it's really great to speak with all of you. Our public schools are so essential to our neighborhoods and our communities, and the work that they do is absolutely wonderful. And so however I can be a resource, I care deeply about literacy, care deeply about the work that the Mayor and the Chancellor are trying to do, and making sure that we get it right and that we get it right for everyone is essential to making sure that all of our children become fluid and fluent readers and love reading and love our schools. And so thank you so much, and look forward to working with all of you over the next months and years.
You're muted, Jace. Great. Thank you so much for being here. Would you mind just sort of speaking briefly about the work you've done? You mentioned you're on the Literacy Advisory Council. Would you mind just sort of sharing for us what that is and what the work that you've been doing on that is?
Sure. So, since I was elected to the legislature, I've been one of the leading voices on reforming our literacy curriculum and standards and professional development statewide. I've spoken and done a lot of work at a number of conferences. I've also had a number of pieces of bills passed, most recently the Dyslexia Task Force legislation, which was signed by the governor late last year, and will there will be public hearings happening later this spring throughout the state to see if we can create some best standards for interventions, professional development, and screening for children who are suspected to be struggling with dyslexia. Because of the work that I've done, I've worked with Chancellor Banks since he assumed his role as chancellor. We've toured a number of schools together, both independent schools and public schools. I've sat on his Literacy Advisory Council, mostly discussing issues around the screening and interventions and supports for children with dyslexia, but also generally what we should do as we're setting standards for literacy curriculum system-wide. I've actually created, at 5 schools, we've done bespoke literacy grants that I've done in my district around getting professional development for teachers, whether it be letters training or Orton Gillingham training for both administrators and for classroom teachers, as well as push-in reading specialists. My role is advisory. My role is to, try to bring people together, whether it be legislatively through laws or on the council with experts in the education field. What I will say, I also represent my constituents, and I do agree with constituents on the point that though the chancellor is 100% correct that we needed to make a big shift away from whole language focused curriculum, I do think that as we're making this big shift, and I understand that can be painful and difficult, that we need not be blind, that we must make sure that we are meeting students where they are, whether it is about making sure they're engaged with text that is representative of who they are, but also taps into their interests. Because as we're getting foundational skills and as we're making sure our children get more and more foundational reading skills, especially in early grades, we then want to allow them to have the latitude as they get older, especially maybe it's in 4th or 5th grade, but definitely in middle school, to be able to branch out. And I don't come here to endorse one particular curricula or one particular way, but what I do come here to say is that I think we should be laser focused on things like evidence-based reading instruction and professional development, but also make sure that we're listening to parents, teachers, and students to find out how we can best modulate that, because this is a long journey. We've started it the last 2 years. It won't be finished tomorrow. And it's a big step that I know that District 20 has taken as part of that first wave of districts. And so, you guys are really blazing a path forward for all of your peers.
Great. Thank you so much. Very helpful and very insightful. And we appreciate you being here and the work that you've done in serving the community, Assemblymember Carroll.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful night.
Of course. So for the first public speaking session, given the number of speakers we have tonight, we're going to extend it. We're going to do 2.5 minutes per speaker, and we're going to try to get through as many of the in-person. I'm going to see how it goes. And then we'll have the second session later in the night. So for the first, for those online, we're taking in-person speakers first. And if you'd like to speak, you can feel free to come up to the podium, or just stand up at your seat is fine too. We can, just speak loudly. We found that microphones are not necessary. It actually leads to feedback for those online. So we just ask everyone to, speak clearly and somewhat loudly, and so everyone can hear you, and we'll let you know if anything needs to change. So our first speaker, Carlo Murray, are you here? And like I said, 2.5 minutes, and I'll just give a signal if you're at time. So go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I am a 6th grader at the Brooklyn School of Inquiry, and I'm here to say a little bit about my experiences with the new HMH reading curriculum. So I really love reading. I love to read all sorts of books. And the thing I love most is that you can just dive in and immerse yourself in a book and its characters. And now that we're learning only from this textbook curriculum in class, I just feel like I don't get that. For example, the very first passage we read in the textbook was an excerpt from Brown Girl Dreaming. And I didn't feel that I was reading a book at all because I was reading poems from 6 different chapters in the middle of the book. Yet then halfway through our analysis of the book, my parents got me the actual book and it just completely changed the story. It broadened my knowledge of this wonderful book and helped me actually understand it so much better. These excerpts didn't tell me what the book was actually about. The book did. Books are meant to be read from cover to back, not from chapter 19, page 75 to chapter 20, page 83. I would also like to talk about the HMH writing curriculum because this year, 90% of the writing I'm doing is answering questions with short response answers and writing about boring excerpts. Last year was a completely different story. Every week, we had to write 4.5-page entries into a notebook for homework alone, and the entries could be about whatever you wanted. It's doing things like that that have expanded my constant love for writing. But this year, it's different. There are hardly any long writing assignments as part of the curriculum, and the only two that we have had to be based on the topic of the unit, and they are specific mandatory prompts. The worst part was that one of my favorite topics, persuasive writing, I could only use evidence and ideas straight from the textbook. I was not allowed to use outside research, and by doing that, I was not proud of my finished writing piece. So to sum it all up, it's just not challenging, fun, or exciting. It feels like I'm getting half the ELA 6th grade experience, half a story, half a piece of writing, only half of the full curriculum. I really hope you will let my school keep teaching me and my classmates in a way that is both educational, exciting, and fun. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Kara Woodward.
Good evening. My name is Kara Woodward. I'm a parent of a 6th grader who attends the Brooklyn School of Inquiry, PSIS 686. We, as all parents in District 20, were blindsided in the spring of 2023 by news of the implementation of the HMH curriculum into our schools. This year, not only did BSI, a K-8 school, implement interreading into page 5, but also into literature into the 6th grade. Although the chancellor has sought to raise proficiency levels across the city, most students at BSI already have those high reading proficiency levels. Teachers, supported in part by the BSI parent body, have curated their curriculum and their classroom libraries to offer reading opportunities that are responsive and engaging. Historically, BSI students, as well as other students in schools in District 20, have shown that the reading programs that they're using in their schools are working for their students. This year, for the first time, my child has described their ELA experience as boring. I've never heard my child use these kinds of descriptives to refer to her school experience at BSI. This is a school that has prided itself on inquiry, to actively engage in the act of asking for information and to make an investigation. Unfortunately, HMH is a one-size-fits-all model steeped in rote learning and assessment-driven. This curriculum has been imposed upon our District 20 schools without the input, the vital input of our principals, teachers, or parents. When we think about 21st century skills, we think of things like collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. These are the kinds of skills that will be needed as our children enter the highly demanding high schools in New York City, universities, and enter the world of work. How will we train them and teach them to think, to ask questions, to exchange ideas, and not merely regurgitate an answer for the sake of being a data point in some algorithm? We are asking that the DOE make good on the suggestion that waivers be allowed to exempt schools from the new literacy mandate in phase 2 for schools that have a proficiency level over 85%. I think there are schools within District 20 that will meet that proficiency level and deserve that waiver. As I have been rereading some of Chancellor Banks' addresses, words on different on the DOE website, he's used the words meaningful and relevant when describing young people who have become engaged in their learning. This is what BSI parents are asking for. We want our children to engage in meaningful and relevant learning. And that has been crafted by our dedicated teachers and administrators. Our curriculum, thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Jasmine Fragate.
My name is Sarah Jasmine Fugit, but I do go by Jasmine. I'm the parent of a third grader at PS 102 and the mother of a pre-K student at Our Savior's Lutheran Preschool who will likely attend PS 102 in the fall. I stand here before you at 41, but in the fall of 2020, I was attending kindergarten at PS 102 with my son, thanks to COVID, of course. The difficulties our family faced that year as a result of my mandatory attendance of kindergarten via Google Meet were enormous. But the wonderful silver lining was that I got to observe one of the most important moments of my son's education, the short months when he went from being completely illiterate to reading fluently. His teacher, Krista Christian, used the reading reform phonics method and patiently but firmly held 15 4- and 5-year-olds wrapped. She used hand gestures to blend sounds like this. Ah, ka, ka, ah. In addition to the blending and breaking drills, we spent time finding the sounds and words we were studying in actual age-appropriate books. Most of them written by Joy Cowley with a diverse cast of talented illustrators. And thanks to COVID, I know firsthand that effective, skillful phonics education was happening at PS 102 in 2020. Miss Christian was so good that it worked for my son, despite all the difficulties of remote instruction. Whereas normally this would have been a black box to me. I'm an architect, not an educator. I got to experience each and every moment. It wasn't magic. It was phonics. It was the joy of real books. It was the science of reading. And it was happening at PS 102 in 2020. I recently got the books out for my 4-year-old daughter, and she adores them. A little sentimental to keep them, I suppose, but it feels tragic to think that she might not get to read them with Miss Christian next year. In conclusion, I leave you with 2 points. Teachers in the classroom know what helps their students succeed best. This knowledge builds year after year, using the same curriculum and tweaking it and learning more from evolving research. Regime change for the sake of regime change risks wiping away all of those years of experience. Why not look at individual schools to see what is working already? And number 2, the science of reading is not proprietary. It's not new. Obviously, the major literacy education misstep of the last half-century was wiping away the old phonics methods entirely. Following HMH or any other corporate curriculum blindly will also have unintended consequences on exactly those children who were left behind by queuing theory.
2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Why does this pendulum have to swing so far? Do you care if I one more thing?
Quick wrap up.
Okay. As for me, I'm left with only one question. Will my daughter hate reading because the HMH reader isn't funny like these books? I'd really rather not find out. Give me Miss Christian any day.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kira. Oden Hao.
Hello, my name is Kira Omar. I'm a 6th grader at the Brooklyn School of Inquiry. I have been a student at BSI since kindergarten, and I'm here to talk about HMH. Personally, I strongly dislike HMH. In my opinion, it is uninteresting. It is so different from how we used to learn reading and writing at my school. Last year, we read multiple books, either as a class or in a small group, and we kept writers' notebooks. We would write about what we noticed and what we thought about our reading. We discussed the books as a class and in small groups. Now, we are already halfway through the school year, and we just finished reading our first whole book as a class. I hope we get to read at least one more whole book, because right now, I feel like reading 3 whole books is an optimistic goal. In years past, ELA was fun. We would read real books and short stories. Now we read mostly excerpts in our HMH workbooks or online. And experts, you don't excerpts, you don't only get a part of the story, but when you read an entire book, you get the whole story. We would talk in small groups about our books. Now we only get to discuss excerpts. We'd make sure everyone was included and everyone understood the story and the theme. And if a student didn't understand something, we had the time to discuss and share our opinions and thoughts. I feel like ELA before HMH allowed everyone to be included. I'm a very optimistic person. At the beginning of the school year, as I received my HMH textbook, I thought, let's give this a chance, even though it is a new way of learning ELA. But now I'm more realistic and it doesn't feel good. Next year, I will be in the 7th grade. I was so excited to hear about Miss Mia and some of the things that she does in her ELA classes, such as a unit where students put Christopher Columbus on trial. I'm a Native American Puerto Rican girl with Taino ancestry. What a unique and personal experience this could be. I would be so disappointed to have this learning opportunity taken away from me and replaced with excerpts and assessments from H&H. I ask that you don't make us change our 7th and 8th grade curriculum. I don't want to be deprived of some of the exciting things and interesting things that we will get to do with Miss Mia. And for the younger kids at BSI, I want them to have the same opportunity I had. I want them to be able to learn to love reading, which BSI is supposed to be all about. Thank you for your time.
And just making sure, just a reminder, everyone is speaking very clearly. Just a reminder to try to speak at the sort of highest level you can without shouting so everyone can hear. But I think everyone's doing great so far. And we won't have to use the mic, which does become problematic. Next speaker is Jordan Carlos.
I'll project.
Please, that's perfect.
Hi, how's it going, everybody? The lady in the back. Good evening. I'll just turn around so you can hear me. And that's disrespect to you. All right. Good evening. My name is Jordan Carlos. I'm a parent with 2 kids in District 20, and my profession is comedian. Perfectionist, really, I do that, and as such, I find that I can laugh at anything except this new reading curriculum. Really, well, okay, maybe there's something a little funny about it. I hail from the not so great state of Texas. Hope for applause. And where, they're banning books in schools, which is fun. And I find that the DOE taking books out of the classroom just makes me feel like I'm right at home. So thank you for making this feel like Texas. So top down, counterintuitive, one-size-fits-all school policy is why I don't live in Texas. I decided to raise my kids here. But now I feel like you brought Texas here, but with none of the delicious barbecue or the Tex-Mex. So it's a travesty. So with no books in schools, it feels like I'm right back home, like I said. But the only difference is that the taxes are much higher. And as we all know, Texas is a place of great ideas. Great ideas. I mean, look at the border and women's bodies just really leading the way. So if you really want to be in camp, I mean, from where I'm standing, I'm just saying I grew up in Texas and now I'm here in New York. I think all of you are born and raised and proud to be New Yorkers. You might not have the same perspective, but just so you know, you are going down the same primrose path. Oh, all the people here. All right, so thank you very much for your time.
Next speaker is Danielle Tarantolo.
Good evening. My name is Danielle Tarantolo. I'm the mother of a 4th and 6th grader at Brooklyn School of Inquiry here in District 20. The HMH curriculum was forced on our school, like other District 20 schools, with 0 parent or school engagement. No one asked our principal, our amazing dedicated teachers, our active parent body, or our students who, as you've already heard and will hear more tonight, know exactly what excites them about their education, either what we wanted or what we needed. Had we been asked either question, the answer would have been a resounding no. First, we did not want HMH. Our school has a unique educational model that's reflected in our name, the Brooklyn School of Inquiry. Historically, we've embraced project-based learning, collaboration, creativity, and deep critical thinking. Our kids used to read novels and then engage with their classmates and teachers on substantive questions. They wrote memoirs and persuasive essays and long works of fiction. But none of that has been possible under HMH. Instead, they read excerpts and answer state test questions in a workbook. My son in 6th grade had, as of a month ago, read exactly 0 books all year and written nothing longer than the 500-word statement we prepared to read tonight. I know not every District 20 school has the same philosophy as we do, but that's the point. Each school has its own philosophy, but no one in the city or district administration cared what it was before throwing it in the trash. That was not fair to us or to our kids. I've explained that we did not want HMH, but we also did not need HMH. Our kids have historically read at exceptionally high levels because our model works for our families. At our school, HMH was a solution in search of a problem. Actually, it was worse because HMH actively turns off kids who are already succeeding. But again, that's the point. It's unconscionable to fundamentally change any school without even asking the question, much less answering, whether there is a problem that needs fixing. The HMH mandate in our schools represents what is worst in New York City public education, a triumph of bureaucracy and uniformity over genuine sensitivity to what our kids need to flourish. But it is not too late to undo some of these bad decisions and help our kids love learning again. Thank you.
Just for everyone, 120 participants online, and online we probably have 50 people in the room. So I'm always impressed by how involved District 20 parents are. Next up is Penelope Nadich.
Hi, my name is Penelope Nadich. I am in the 6th grade at BSI. I don't think I am learning anything from an Intellect book because all of our writing is either repeating what the book just said or having the words be fed to us by the books for responses about the excerpts. In earlier years, instead, we'd read whole books and be given questions to talk about with partners who, let's say I didn't understand it, my partner who did understand it would be able to explain it to me. On top of that, it makes it really hard to add creativity or to express yourself in the writing. In fact, the unit about expressing yourself had us choose a mode of self-expression to write a persuasive essay on. Then the book forced us to cite evidence from the excerpt, limiting what you could write your essay about to the topics that were in the book. This stopped me from choosing my favorite mode of self-expression, which is singing, because it wasn't in the book. So instead, I researched on my own for evidence to support my essay on music as the best mode of self-expression, and ended up with a much better essay than sticking to the book, because it expressed who I am more, rather than an essay where I just repeated back info from the workbook. Overall, the Intellect book has you repeat what it just stated, gives you words to the answers, and stops your writing of creativity and self-expression. This is why I don't think I'm learning very much. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Steve. Good evening. My name is Alina Lewis, and I'm a parent with 2 District 20 students. I'm also a graduate of New York City Public Schools. I vividly remember reading The Grapes of Wrath in 8th grade. I was fascinated by the trials of the Joad family forced to move west during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. I traveled to colonial New England while reading The Scarlet Letter and was transfixed by Alex Haley's autobiography of Malcolm X. These books changed my life. They sparked a lifelong interest in American history, leading me to study and then later teach history in New York City public schools. I'm now pursuing a PhD in history education. These were not books that I would have read on my own, nor would I have truly understood their deeper meaning without a skillful teacher who guided students toward that deeper meaning. Reading such books is important to our students on so many levels. It prepares them to get into and succeed in rigorous high schools and college, something that's very important to District 20 parents. Reading such books can inspire lifelong passions and continuous learning, as they did in my case. More broadly, engaging with such literature prepares our students for participation in democracy. Now more than ever, we need informed, critical, and compassionate citizens to sustain American democracy. Superintendent Prato's mandate that all District 20 middle schools adopt into literature means that our kids will not have access to such rigorous and engaging books. Now, instead of reading A Raisin in the Sun or The Diary of Anne Frank at BSI, our students will read bland 2-page excerpts, such as Challenges for Space Exploration from the HMH workbook. Instead of reading Fahrenheit 451 or Romeo and Juliet at Cunningham, our students read a 3.5-page article about Instagrammers. Instead of reading Esperanza Rising and discussing how its themes relate to their lives, our students at IS 30 answer multiple choice questions in a workbook. Instead of reading or discussing The Great Gatsby or Of Mice and Men at McAuliffe, our students are told to write a short paragraph about a popular social media influencer. District 20 parents and school communities were not consulted in Superintendent Prato's decision to mandate HMH for our middle schools. We demand a transparent and democratic process for any middle school curricular reforms that includes District 20 parents, students, teachers, and school leaders. Our students in District 20 deserve to be challenged and engaged in meaningful work. We refuse to accept such low expectations for our students. Thank you.
Next speaker is Will Bolas.
My name is Will Bolas. I'm a 5th grader at BSI. I don't like the HMH into reading curriculum. In fact, very few people do. So I thought, why not share my own experience with this curriculum? I have always loved reading. You can ask anyone in my family, and they will tell you that. I can also tell you that this curriculum has no reading. For example, for the past 5 years, I've been working on reading actual books, then writing free write responses to some of those books. This new curriculum is making us read excerpts, which are not real reading, and then write a state test style long response after reading said extremely boring answers. Instead of real writing, we just do multiple choice questions. Last year, we had class discussions about a class read aloud. Now we share our long responses. This sharing consists of one person reading aloud a few boring paragraphs, everyone else not fully listening, because none of the topics in HMH are engaging. Also, at least in my class, no one likes it. My friend Sebastian has a sheet of paper saying, sign here if you hate HMH. That paper has the signature of every 5th grader in my class, most kids on my school bus, and a few others. I was planning to stay at BSI for middle school. My family knows the middle school curriculum because both of my sisters have graduated from BSI 8th grade and like the teaching. I was looking forward to being the student of the great English teacher, Miss Mia. However, in 6th grade right now, they also have to do the stupid reading curriculum. If I stayed at BSI, I might not have an actual education in 6th grade. I'm currently applying to other middle schools, so I want to be able to read actual books in class and write actual stories, not long responses next year. Our old curriculum was better in every single way, so please give us our curriculum back. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Isabel Carlos.
My name is Isabel Carlos, and I'm in 5th grade at the Brooklyn School of Inquiry. In the 5th Harry Potter book, the Ministry of Magic installs a mundane curriculum for the students of Hogwarts in defense against the dark arts. In this curriculum, you study defensive spells, think about defensive spells, and write papers on defensive spells, but you do not actually get to do defensive spells. In my opinion, this curriculum is not unlike the HMH curriculum. We are thinking about books, and we are reading excerpts, but we are not actually reading books. It's February, and we have still not yet read a book as a class. During ELA, our class is bored and restless. As a student, you can have my word that the HMH curriculum is mundane and useless for learning. Want to know how I learn the word mundane? Because I read books.
curriculum is not permitting me to during ELA. Furthermore, it was probably made by somebody who just wanted to stay test scores higher instead of caring about what quality of education we're getting. I love to read and I want to be able to. Thank you.
Thank you. Annie Toms.
My name's Annie Toms, and I'm a District 20 parent. Both of my daughters attended and graduated from BSI, and my son Will is in 5th grade now. I'm also a high school English teacher, and I've spent much of my life thinking about and working to promote student literacy. That's also where I get this voice. The changes to the literacy curriculum in District 20 are destroying a robust, effective curriculum that led kids to love reading and writing. I'm here tonight to ask for your help in obtaining a waiver for BSI and rescinding the District 20 mandate to change the middle school curriculum. What we have is working. Support it, don't destroy it. Since 2012, when my older daughter started kindergarten, we've seen BSI's excellent teachers craft inquiry-based, interdisciplinary projects that challenge students and got them thinking deeply. All 3 of my kids are passionate readers and writers, in no small part because of the strong literacy curriculum at BSI. This year, because of the NYC Reads citywide mandate and Dr. Prato's choice of curriculum, a choice made without engaging the District 20 community, BSI's robust curriculum was replaced by interreading. As you heard, my son is disengaged and bored. For the first time in his school-going life, he comes home every day complaining about the reading periods. The interreading curriculum contains no full books. My son says it's like state test prep every day. There is no opportunity for deep thinking, for working with complex texts, for inquiry or curiosity. There is no real substantive writing. There is almost no flexibility for teachers to differentiate or include full books in the curriculum because all teachers have to follow a district-wide pacing calendar. I've been a high school English teacher for over 20 years, and I know from working with 9th to 12th graders how important it is for them to be exposed to and engaged with full novels, to understand complexity, nuance, and character development. Laying the groundwork for the ability to understand complex texts is vital for their future as high school and college students and as citizens. My daughters learned all of these things from their teachers at BSI, up through and including the stellar middle school curriculum developed by Ms. Mia Sechelotto. In Ms. Mia's classes, my daughters read Shakespeare, Thoreau, Anne Frank, John Steinbeck, and Lorraine Hansberry. They talked and wrote about complex moral issues, crafted creative projects, and graduated more than ready to meet the challenges of high school reading and writing. Because of Dr. Prato's mandate, the District 20 schools replaced their middle school curriculums with HMH into literature. BSI 6th graders are now reading text excerpts out of workbooks, and Ms. Mia's 7th and 8th grade curriculum is slated to be replaced starting next year. This is no way to run a school system. Don't destroy what's working. Grant BSI a waiver and rescind the District 20 middle school curriculum mandate.
Thank you. Next up, Marjorie Natick.
Good evening. My name is Marjorie Natick, and my daughter, Penelope, attends 6th grade at the Brooklyn School of Inquiry. This year, her school has implemented HMH's interreading in K-5 and interliterature in grade 6, replacing a successful quality ELA curriculum in our school. We are told that the superintendent is mandating the BSI implement interliterature in 7th grade next year. And for many reasons, I am opposed. I'd like an answer tonight about how our school can request a waiver to not implement the HMH curriculum in the 2024-25 school year. Our parent body has been asking for this for the last year. In previous years, my daughter has thrived under the BSI ELA curriculum. It shaped her into a kid that not only loves reading, but also loved discussing books and loved creative writing. Her teacher's curriculum integrated full book class reading with teacher-led discussions, as well as self-reflective journal writing, creative story writing, and nonfiction essay writing. The teacher's curriculum taught my daughter how to read a book, how to decipher the author's messages, and to infer what would come next in the book. The kids were thinking about possibilities, brainstorming ideas, and creating projects, and it was successful. However, now in 6th grade with the HMH Interliterature curriculum, I feel that not only have her skills not advanced, but the canned learning of the workbook is actually undoing the educational advances of her previous grades. The interliterature curriculum does not teach her how to think. It does not teach her to be unique, to think outside the box, or to investigate. It does not include any creativity of any kind. HMH teaches memorization, canned responses, that something is only important if it will be on a test, that reading an excerpt of a book is good enough. These excerpts miss entire concepts of the books they introduce, and there is no time for deeper class discussions. The biggest issue I have with HMH Interliterature curriculum is there's absolutely zero creative writing. Not once this year have they written anything that is creative writing. And that is just, I'm going off book right now. Like, it just is making me, like, my heart sink. Like, really, really, really disappointing. As well, the school year is halfway over and 6th grade has only read one book with no time for teacher-led discussion at all. They haven't discussed the book. They're just told to read it. I'd like to know tonight how BSI can apply for an exemption implementing the HMH curriculum, not implementing the HMH curriculum next year. We can't do it in 7th grade. The interliterature does not do what it names implies. It does not bring my child into literature. It just skims the surface. We want to know how we can get a waiver, please. Thank you.
Next speaker, Heather Lewis.
Sorry, I fractured my spine. I'm a District 20 resident, and I'm a proud grandmother of 4 children in BSI. I'm also a historian of education. I've been around a lot. I'm a former New York City school board member, educator. So this debate about reading and curriculum is not new to me. The pendulum, I've been on it many times myself, and I've researched it. So I understand what it means to go in and out like this with curriculum. But what brings me here tonight is my experience as a professor of art and design education, preparing teachers for New York City schools. It's not literacy, but as you just heard, creative writing is very much similar to art and design, okay? And what are the commonalities? Critical thinking, meaning making, and creativity, which we hear everyone repeat again and again tonight. But preparing teachers to do that is not an easy task. It'd be much easier for them and for me to hand a on-the-shelf curriculum. Go, I'll prepare you how to manage the classroom. You go and just follow it. That is not going to get us where we want to be. It's not going to help the kids we want to help. So if they aren't the drivers of curriculum, who is? Well, we've heard about it tonight, right? But what's important here, and if we say the mayor and the chancellor are the drivers at this point, well, we've also got the state, right? The state has not taken a position on this. And as a matter of fact, what they are promoting right now, some of you may know, is culturally responsive and sustaining curriculum. And there's frameworks at the state level. And that's based on science too, the science of the brain and learning. So we've got the science of reading, and I'm not questioning necessarily that science. I'm not an expert on that. But we've got the science of what's sustaining culturally responsive learning, right? And it has to do with the brain. Those two sciences have not come together in this curriculum position from the mayor and the chancellor. They're completely separate, even though the state is asking that we do this. And what is it about the brain and what and learning? Well, that's specifically for school-dependent learners. So BSI should get its waiver, but the rest of the children shouldn't be subjected to this curriculum.
Yes.
So
2.5 minutes, speaker.
School-dependent learners, who are the ones that we should be preparing to be independent learners. And they're not going to get there through this curriculum.
And in-person speaker, Grace Rockman.
I'm also.
Yes,
I have in-person here, and then I have
Maybe I accidentally signed. up for
online on the
Zoom.
other side.
Would you mind if Grace and I both?
1 minute, let me just see if Grace, were you here? I'm sorry,
You
what?
wanted me to speak now?
Yeah, I had you at the last in-person. We were gonna try to get through everyone in person first, and then. Who are you? So how many more in-person would like to speak? Just Marie, Grace, and yourself?
Oh, right here.
And what time are we at? 6:56? And you have 40 minutes? Yeah, the students. I'm gonna stick with this, what I got. We're gonna go one more and then. There's a lot on the agenda.
Do you want me to go first?
Do you want me to check how many are online left and then we can see?
Sorry.
Do you want me to check how many are online now and then if we don't have enough anymore?
That's a good idea.
Let me
See how
check
many
on
are
this.
online. All right, so we have at least one person.
I also.
Grace, are you giving up your spot?
Sorry. Sorry. Not to pull that, but yeah. Okay. So my name is Christina Marasco. I'm co-president of PS 185, and I'm here to speak about the new literacy program. First off, I would like to take a moment. I generally want to thank you, Dr. Preto, for coming to 185 during our inter-reading parent workshop this past Friday morning. Our parents appreciate that you took the time to listen to our concerns, field questions, and engage in conversation about the new reading program with our school community. Although I feel confident that you listened to our feedback and will consider our suggestions, I want to articulate some things that many PS 185 parents would like to see implemented in order to make the literacy program more effective and engaging for the students of PS 185 and District 20 as a whole. We would like time built in for teachers to adapt, modify, and supplement the inter-reading curriculum as they see fit. For example, we would like our teachers to be able to have the time to include picture books for the lower grades and novels for the upper grades outside of the scripted curriculum that relate to the inter-reading modules. We would like teachers to have more in-depth training in the science of reading, not just the inter-reading curriculum. Our teachers have done an incredible job at 185 implementing this new curriculum with the limited amount of time they received to get it off the ground. However, we strongly believe if our teachers are well-versed in the science of reading, they will have a deeper understanding of how children learn how to read and will be better equipped to implement best practices, no matter what curriculum they are mandated to use now or in the future. We would like the district to reconsider having second graders take the module assessments on the computer. So I'm an early childhood special educator, and I know that from a developmental standpoint, the early childhood stage is from birth to age 8. It is not developmentally appropriate for second graders to take exams on a computer. We understand and appreciate that the district is trying to prepare our children with computer readiness skills, but using the computer in early childhood classrooms should be limited as much as possible, especially for test taking. And I do just quickly want to say, in support of BSI, I think they should get the exemption. Their needs are different than our schools.
But you guys have.
Yes, but you know, they're scoring really high on the standardized test. I believe that if it's above a certain percentage, it seems like an amazing curriculum which the teachers developed at the school was working. So yeah, I just think.
One more. But this list is only one more name. That's not there.
In addition to those lists, some of these are in.
Yes, so this is 8.
All right, who's up next? Grace, do you want to go?
Yeah.
We'll try and get through everyone. Yeah, we'll try and get through it.
Hi, I'm Grace Bobby, parent to a first grader and fifth grader at PS 185. I'm the PTA co-secretary. I'm class parent in both my children's classes, and I'm a Girl Scout troop leader for children from various elementary and middle schools in District 20. First, I also want to thank Dr. Preto for coming to our school's HMH info session last Friday and spending 2 hours answering our questions. I feel our administration also did a great job with putting together a thorough presentation. Although I'm still trying to reconcile the information shared during the info session and the information I've collected from students, parents, and teachers.
My kids are both independent learners, so I've never had to get personally involved with their academics, but I'm here because my fifth grader, whose sentiments seem to echo what I've heard from others, asked that I share her statement tonight. Well, so I'll paraphrase that here. While the Into Reading passages offer more educational information, we don't feel we're actually learning more because we don't remember all the information that's in the passages, since it's very boring. We miss reading books of our choice. Reading used to be fun and we'd look forward to reading, but now we listen to a teacher or a recording of someone reading a passage to us, and we're not paying attention because we know we can look through the book for the answers during the quizzes. After the quiz is over, we don't remember what we learned. I also wanted to add a few responses to the info session. I understand that the curriculum is not intended to take away teacher autonomy, but that does not appear to be the practice. So perhaps teachers can be given instruction on the science of reading and encouraged to focus on the quality of a few passages that are supported by novels and project-based learning, thematic teaching, rather than the quantity of passages and selection quizzes given. Second, there seems to be a lot of confusion around the scoring of the selection quizzes and modules. I'd love to see more clarity on this. If a 65 needs an 80, then perhaps a 65 should just be an 80. Since my first grader will be in the second grade next year, I was glad to hear that Dr. Preto seems to agree that second graders maybe don't need to take tests on computers. This can be more of a transition year where they spend a little time learning to type while strengthening their fine motor skills with handwriting. And finally, it also sounds like smaller class sizes make more sense in the gen ed classes, maybe not for like the GNT programs, but where there's children of different varying levels and learning styles, smaller class sizes I think would be very helpful for that. So I'm hopeful to see us work together to create a more positive learning environment that isn't only preparing our children to be better test takers, but also prepares them to be enthusiastic learners and who are eager to make a positive contribution to our society.
Hi, I will be brief. I'm a parent of a sixth grader at IS 187, Krista McAuliffe, so I'm representing Krista McAuliffe here. I definitely echo the sentiments of all the parents that have spoken before me. The small difference in Krista McAuliffe is they actually have been reading books, but the problem has been, there has been no accountability from the students. The reading is on your own. There has been, as was mentioned before, no critical thinking development or discussion of the books. Books are supposed to be read independently, and at most one very cursory assignment is assigned upon completion of the book. So which basically for an 11-year-old boy who is ambivalent about reading, he is going to skim the book and see what he can get away with, because there's no critical thinking discussion that takes place about the novels. I definitely believe that, at this point they have read 2 books on their own, but that is definitely too few. It's more than BSI has read, but 2 by mid-year is just too few. The books themselves are not challenging either in content or vocabulary. And I definitely think that middle school is a time for just falling in love with novels and falling in love with reading and being able to transport yourself into a different world and learning how to write essays that are not formulaic. So I think that it should not be a one-size-fits-all curriculum, and students at 187 are being shortchanged. I think from perspective of a parent in a school that is doing well in standardized tests, teachers and principals should be able to have input into the curriculum, and they should be able to select books that are appropriate for the students in a particular school or even a particular class. So I definitely echo the sentiments that interliterature is not really doing a lot about allowing students to love literature. And Dr. Preto, please consider changing it for 187 as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for putting me on. Keep my remarks short. My name is Sarah Slichter. I'm a 6th grade teacher at PSIS 30. I'm also a chapter leader. For the years that I taught fifth grade at PSIS 30, one of the highlights of our year was reading a very special novel together, Esperanza Rising. Has anyone read this one before? This is my personal copy, one that I've read aloud from many, many times, and I've actually cherished since I myself read the book as a fifth grader. I've even got it signed by the author as a kid. And she wrote inside, "Read and rise," which feels like a really profound message considering what we're discussing. If you've read the book, you know why it's so special. It's the captivating story of a girl who has to make big adjustments to her life, like immigrating to a new country, learning new skills, and embracing a totally new identity. Students were always mesmerized by the way those experiences mirrored their own and the beauty and empathy of the text. Reading books that affirm who they are and help them make sense of the world around them, like Esperanza Rising, is a deeply meaningful human experience. One of my greatest hopes as an ELA teacher is to cultivate a love of books so that students can continue to have those experiences beyond my classroom. However, this year as I moved up with my students to sixth grade, our curriculum shifted dramatically. We no longer read novels, and the magic of reading a moving story is sorely missed by my students. It's been replaced with reading excerpts of texts and responding via multiple choice questions. I worry that my students are learning that reading is just about getting the right answer, rather than a standard supported, science-backed curriculum that also allows for a critical exploration of the human condition. It feels like the life has been taken out of ELA. I hope that District 20 can implement a curriculum that is responsive to students' culture, needs, and dreams. Thank you.
Great. And then I'm just going to end the public speaking session. We're going to bookend it. Another elected official has called in, and I'm just on his behalf going to read his comments on this. State Assemblyman Lester Chang is driving back from Albany tonight, but he wanted me to say he supports what's being said here tonight about for BSI and the other schools, and that these students should receive education appropriate to their needs. And so he just wants to emphasize his full support for the points being made here tonight. That's State Assemblyman Lester Chang. Okay, without further ado, let's go to our superintendent for his report.
So good evening, everybody. It's great to hear from everybody. I'm really happy to hear how passionate everybody is about the curriculum. It's clear that it's being implemented in the schools, especially one of them. But I'm really happy to be with you all tonight, and I will definitely speak to some of the NYC Reads points that were made tonight. But I first had some really exciting news, introduction of a new principal in the district, as well as the announcement of some winners of our Respect for All contest. Let me just share my screen. Great. So good evening. The first thing I'd like to do tonight is to make an introduction of a new leader in District 20. So, and at this school, actually, that is co-located with PS 939. So MS 936, Arts Off Third, since the beginning of the year, has been served and led by an interacting principal. And through the C30 process, a new principal was selected for appointment. And I'm really excited to introduce him tonight. He comes to us as the former now assistant principal of the arts at the Brooklyn High School of the Arts, Mr. Frank Proudfoot. So I'd just like to introduce Mr. Proudfoot and have him come up and really excited to have Mr. Proudfoot on board to support MS 936 and the expansion of the arts, not just in 936, but also across the district. So welcome, Mr. Proudfoot.
Technical adjustment, David?
Sure.
I'm going to mute mine and you're going to unmute yours because it's not.
The second thing I'd like to do today is, and I appreciate them all for coming tonight, and I would like to invite the principals of the winners who have come this evening to come up and be able to also welcome and introduce their winners. So we have Principal Angelo Sacco from PSIS 180, Principal Josephine Sportella from PS 682, And then on behalf of Principal Alejandro from PS 127, I will do the introductions for our total of 5 students. Every year in anticipation of Respect for All Week, which begins next week, it's February 12th to 16th. It's our annual New York City Public Schools celebration of our policy of Respect for All, which is focused on anti-bullying, and developing strong, positive school cultures. So across the entire district and across the city, there's a lot of different activities that students engage in, and teachers in schools lead all the way across the week to celebrate and promote our dedication to Respect for All. And a big piece of that in anticipation of Respect for All is the annual essay, poster, and multimedia or poster contest. So every every school in District 20 participates in a school level development of their essays, posters, and multimedia video presentations. They all present their winners to the district, and then my district team, student services manager, district social worker, our family team, and myself all go through, and we ultimately use a rubric and select the winners. And it's really exciting thing to do every year, and this year is no different. I'm really excited to introduce the winners. So first, from PS 127, the essay winner is Joseph Linksman. I just want to say, yeah, come on, man. Joseph wrote an incredible, compelling essay that brought a couple of my staff members to tears. And tears aren't on the rubric, but really amazing job and really proud. So congratulations. You gonna read it? Absolutely. All right.
Let me just ask you guys one question. Do you think that, let's say that obstacles can stop you from running and doing stuff? Do you think? Well, for me, obstacles don't stop me. This quote by Michael Jordan is how I feel about Respect for All. Obstacles don't stop you, don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it. This is how I feel about Respect for All. My disability makes me different, and this is what people fear. This makes it hard for people to accept me for who I am. Respect for all means to me to respect all people regardless of their culture, religion, skin color, or ability. Unfortunately, people have a fear of the unknown, which causes people to react in a disrespectful manner. It took me a long time to realize that people can react in a disrespectful manner towards people who are different. Now that I understand this, I can share this with others, how I have learned to accept that feeling. We can solve these problems of disrespect by learning to accept people of all cultures, religions, skin colors, and abilities, and stop judging people because of it. A quote by Martin Luther King Jr. says that you should never judge someone by their race, skin color, religion, or disability. Instead, you judge them by their character. Teaching people about these differences can help us learn to accept others and appreciate them more. When I was younger, people would look at me because I was different. I didn't understand it at first, but then when I looked around in my surroundings, I saw people way more different than me. As a disabled child, I thought I would get made fun of because of how I was. But thankfully, I was fortunate enough to have people who accept and respect me even though I am different. Having this experience is making me want to share with people that differences are always a good way to learn something new and not be against appreciating others. In conclusion, I think people have trouble accepting others that are different, but we are all different. We are all different religions, cultures, abilities, and races. We should all treat each other with respect. We should always treat others the way that we want to be treated. Thank you.
The next winner I'd like to bring up Principal Angelo Sacco to also introduce our winner of the poster contest.
I'd like to call upon David Q. Congratulations.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I want to talk about my my little drawing, I guess. Essentially, when you're a kid, obviously you have your own little world. You have your friends, your family, and you don't really know anything about pain or whatsoever on that matter. But when you get bullied, essentially what happens is your world gets cracked and you feel such a struggle and you feel alone. You feel like you can't do anything anymore. You lose all hope. And essentially I have went through bullying, specifically cyberbullying, and it really gets into your head. But the one advice I could really give you is just to keep going, because that's really something you have to keep on pursuing, which is life.
I would like to introduce, I'd like to invite Principal Josephine Portella to the front to introduce the winners as a team of multimedia and video. Okay. So we've got, how do you want to do this? So Nicholas Diacomonolis, Susanna Regnier, and Liam Lerner Nunez. This team created an amazing video, so not just like for the content, but also the production quality was incredibly good. So like a great job. So congratulations. What's that?
Our school's media specialist, Mr. Reese, right? These are a passionate group of children. Congratulations, Nicholas.
Congratulations.
Video? We don't have it, right? So who want, maybe you want? No, but maybe you guys. Yeah? Cause it's really impressive. Yeah, it's on the,
Well, Dr. Petto pulls that up. I just want to share a funny observation that ties this together. When I was a kid, growing up in a small, somewhat rural elementary school, I was bullied for reading too many books. That's why it ties together a lot of things. Yeah, it's for a minute. Books that you have for a lot.
Put my thing on max.
Yeah, and then just mute your mic. There you go.
And mute the mic.
Yeah, there you go.
anxiety, depression, and harm to others. We need to stop this before it gets too bad. We can't let bullying, big or small, build up in the hearts of our kids. Let's find out ways to relieve the anxiety that might be building.
We're gonna film some lighthearted skits about how little moments can lead up into big bullying. Bullying doesn't always lead up to some big blowout fight like this. Sometimes it's just little bits of bullying that add up in our hearts. Parents and teachers, you guys need to know what happens in places where kids are alone, like the bathroom. It's where I lost my first tooth, but it's also where I've had big blown up fights with my friends.
Hey, want to hear a rumor? Did you hear that Raphael likes Tyrone?
Really? I won't tell. Cyberbullying. Some things that are typed on the computer or iPad can be brought back to school, and that could cause problems, big or small.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't pull
What are you guys talking about?
You don't have a YouTube.
You wouldn't understand.
Jokes can be funny, but sometimes they can be hurtful too.
Your mom's so stupid, she thought Dunkin' Donuts was a basketball team. Ha! Kids, give teachers and parents hints that bullying might be happening to you. Let's turn home and school into a place where we can talk about bullying freely.
If you find it embarrassing to talk about bullying, it's okay. Go to your parents, guidance counselors, teachers. They'll be very helpful.
Don't let bullying, big or small, build up in the hearts of our kids. Action. Be like this. You can be like, really?
Gotta get a picture. Yeah, I cut off my forehead.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Really
good. At least, honestly, I was gonna give you credit for everything.
Great job, guys.
All right. All right, I'm gonna grab. Station. It's good. Am I still on? Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you should hold it. Yeah. Yeah. Right, so. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, it gets back up in our picture. We'll be here until 10. So, just shifting to another component of the Respect for All initiative. It's focused on anti-bullying, and one of the requirements of New York City Public Schools in the state of New York is to observe Local Law 51, which is to report biannually on incidents that relate to harassment, intimidation, and discrimination. So pursuant to Local Law 51 of 2018, I think there's a resolution on the board for this exact reporting mechanism. The Department of Education is required to provide reports on student-to-student bullying, harassment, including sexual harassment, intimidation, and discrimination twice per year, May 31st, November 30th. Per the legislation and in accordance with the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, any value on the report from 1 to 5 is redacted, and it's noted as in a star. So I have compiled the last 2 reporting periods from District 20 specific, and I'll just read the chart to explain what it means. This District 20 in the eyes of the state represents the high schools as well as middle schools and elementary schools. So this data is all encompassing of the high schools that exist within the geographic district of District 20, as well as the elementary and middle schools. The most recent reporting period was this past November 30th, and it released data that was between the periods of May 22nd, 2022 and November of 2022. So reading from left to right, total refers to the total number of report or alleged incidents. Material is the number of substantiated incidents. So there are the number of reported incidents, and then there are the incidents that have been substantiated after investigation. These are all incidents that relate to any type of bullying, period. Then moving on, it goes into the categories that constitute the types of bullying that refer to bias-based bullying. So bullying based off of race, bullying based off of ethnicity or national origin, or both, bullying based on religion, bullying based on gender, weight, gender identity and expression, disability, and sexual orientation. And on the far right is the total of all of those bias-based bullying material incidents, ones that were substantiated via investigation. So in May, so you'll see that in May 2022, there were 418 alleged bullying incidents. There were 221 substantiated or material bullying incidents in District 20. Of those, 24 were based off of race, 6 off of national origin or ethnicity, or both, 11 on based on religion, 7 on gender, 10 on weight, so on and so forth. You'll see that there were more material incidents in the latest reporting period, November 22 versus May 2022. There were more based off of race, so there were 9 more than in the reporting period. There were 2 less total bias-related incidents in District 20 in this period, and so on and so forth. So this data is also contained on the New York City Public Schools website under government reports. You can access it via the public website, and you can access District 20's specific data as well as every other district in New York City. So I just pulled these 2 as samples to understand the most recent data that's been reported, how to read the report, and what the report says, and get a sense of how the reporting works and how the DOE releases this data.
Can I hit you with a few questions on that,
Sure.
David, while we're here? Do you know why there's nothing from 2023 on here?
What I do know is that they release the data in the biennial report, so it's twice per year, and they release the data from this past reporting period. They released the data from November 2022. Why, I don't know.
I mean, it should be released. It should be, I mean, is there anything that would stop them from releasing it shortly? I mean, the law requires releasing on these specific dates, so they're late. And this is this is the resolution that John has sponsored.
Gotcha.
But John, did you want to ask David any questions about this? No.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of, I'm curious if you have any insight, because otherwise we're going to take it to, you know, the DOE and sort of, and especially the city council members who have passed local law 51, who have an interest in seeing this. I'm just curious why it's, because you guys have this data. It may not be reported, but the district knows what the data is. I mean, you guys have this stuff, and I'm sure you're not sitting around wondering what the 2023 numbers were. Why is it not, again, just one more, do you have any idea why it's not being reported? Do you guys provide it?
I don't have any like firm answers for you. I would like have my suspicions or my questions, but I don't know for certain. I would go to the Office of Safety and Youth Development to find out what the answers were.
So this is only 1 year. This is only 1 year of reporting, and I love data. So I'm, you know, I'm not going to ask you for all the other years because we can get that and we'll work on that. But in 1 year, it looks like material incidents jumped 21%. Any interpretation of that change? Do you think it's, it seems pretty material? And if I was to see a 21% increase in something, I'd say that's pretty material. Have you guys sort of, at least for this data, have you sort of had any conclusions as to why that happened?
I mean, this is the reporting period that covered the first year that we came back in person from the pandemic. So 21, 22 was the first year that we were in person. 22, 23 was the year after that. We did see overall a slight uptick in, you know, alleged reported incidents, as well as you're seeing material incidents. As far as the why, you know, I don't have any I don't have any like theories for you right now.
Mhm.
I would have to go back and again, and you make this point, it's last year's data and we're talking about the data that was reported from 2 years ago and comparing it to the data from a year ago. So, I would have to,
Are
a lot has
you-
happened since
Are
then.
you able to say, irrespective of whatever's been disclosed by the DOE Central, you're able to say in 2023 that we saw a similar level of incidents, or did you see an increase or a decrease?
We saw an increase in incidents coming out of the pandemic to our first couple of years back in school.
Including
Uh,
2023?
Yeah. That much I can say. But in terms of like the theories behind it, behind the why, I'll be honest with you, we had a lot of questions coming out of the pandemic of how children and the schools coming back in person together and all of the different and related experiences that folks had during the pandemic was going to manifest in schools, as well as schools being able to get back up and running their school culture systems, getting accustomed to the various challenges that all folks had, adults in the building, families, students, both health related as well as kind of social and emotionally related.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there was a lot there.
Yeah, sure. And how about sort of going forward? Let's sort of, is there a strategy to address? I mean, you've had your staff on before.
Mhm.
We've heard sort of the official view, but if you could kind of give us high level or sort of a succinct sort of strategy to address bullying in District 20.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that we really had to make sure that we did, my staff reported on this, and I gave a report on this as well, is the Department of Education does have a lot of structures that are in place to combat bullying. I mean, Respect for All is a policy that has been around for several years, and it does have specific components structurally that schools are required to have in place in their what's called the consolidated plan. One of the first things that we had to make sure that was done was to make sure that those structures were put in place very strong. These are things that rely on a variety of different staff members. These are guidance counselors, you're forming crisis teams. There's a lot of different components the school has to have in place in order to meet the demands of all the policy of Respect for All. And it was first important for us to do a baseline check to make sure that all of those systems were working functionally and really well. And in cases where they weren't, support the teams, either in the formation of the team, the training of the team, to make sure that all of those foundational components were in place. The second thing we did was we did a lot of TCIS training or therapeutic crisis intervention in schools. I have a couple of members of my team that are fully trained. We've operated trainings over the last couple of years to increase the number of staff in the schools that are trained in TCIS. And we found it to be a really effective structure to support schools in supporting children who are manifesting in crisis and de-escalation, and in general, providing a school environment where children aren't being triggered inside of school to want to go and bully somebody else. That's something else we've done. And what we've also really tried to leverage is student voice, primarily in the first couple of years through Civics for All and student government. We've had a lot of success in PS 682 is a good example, just because I was just there and participated in their voting for different school student leadership structures. But we're really looking for different schools, and we have a few in the district that have really strong student leadership teams that are focused on anti-bullying and school culture specifically, not some of the kind of overall components that, sorry, I can only hear my voice once too. It's that aren't focused on some of I don't use the word typical in a negative way, but typically with a lot of the student government components, participatory budgeting, it's focused on new bathrooms, opening the playground, like opening a school store, and these are all great things, and we're encouraging that and expanding those. But we're also looking for places where students are engaged proactively in school culture, value development, mission statement development, activities, assemblies where we're speaking specifically about anti-bullying and engaging students. So, and we have a couple of really strong schools who are doing that. We're looking to see how we can leverage those and, build the capacity of other student leadership teams across the district.
Great, thanks. Well, I'm speaking for myself. I'm sure a lot of us up here, if not everyone, would like to continue to see sort of this data aligned with, in addition to hearing updates on the initiative on an ongoing basis, because it really is, I think it's one of the most, after the literacy curriculum, it's probably over the last year, the specific topic I've heard about the most from parents in the district. So we appreciate this and the beginning of a sort of an ongoing, I think. Anyone else,
Absolutely.
any other council members? Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
So what do you think constitutes bullying? Does every district have their own definition of bullying?
There are multiple codes in the discipline code that tie directly to bullying. So these incidents that are here, both reported and alleged, and the substantiated ones, all tie to specific codes in the discipline code.
So where does physical fighting fall under this whole thing?
Physical fighting is not directly bullying. It would be considered a fight. It's elevated above bullying. Yeah, I mean, there could be bullying that was involved in an incident that led to a physical fight, but a physical altercation is a different code altogether. If that's the one that's used to report the incident.
Because like today it happened to my son, so it really affected me today, but in a different district he goes to, but you know, we're all public schools. And so I was just wondering so physical fighting will be above bullying.
So you have as a parent, the discipline code is a public document. So you can locate that on the DOE website. We can post it in the chat if possible. We can also send it out. The discipline code is a widely available document. You as a parent are also entitled to know what the infraction code that was listed of an incident that your child was involved in. So your school, your principal, the dean, whatever school staff is involved in any incident, you're entitled to that information, to know what the code was and how they're proceeding with addressing the incident.
So when I was talking to the guy that was dealing with it, I guess the dean, he was saying, because it was a mutual physical fighting, they, like he seemed like he didn't want to report it, and it seems like a lot of schools are like that.
So
It feels like we don't have a voice when our kids get bullied, or they try to downplay it in most of the schools.
in that case, and I say this to every parent who feels unsatisfied with the response of a school or otherwise, you can I would recommend emailing your principal, definitely, if you were not speaking with the principal about that incident. Ultimately, the principal is responsible for, the incident reporting in the school. Also recommend to reach out to the superintendent. You can also report, you can send an email to respectforall@schools.nyc.gov. And we also have a phone number. I don't have the phone number memorized, but I first recommend, if you didn't speak with the principal, to contact the principal, either verbally or in writing, regarding your feelings about the incident. And I don't like to discuss like individual incidents
No.
in a public meeting, but
this is the general
yeah.
outline, so I wonder if it happened to my kid, then what will other parents be doing in the
If you're not happy with the answer that you're getting from school staff, you should contact the principal directly. If you are dealing with the principal and you're not satisfied, you should reach out to your superintendent.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, David.
Sure.
Next.
So second, District 20. So one thing that I want to say before I start to give this, presentation on our progress in NYC Reads, and this is priority 1 in our DCP. So all students learn to read well is Chancellor's #1 priority. And one thing I want to say is that we've spoken about this with the CEC, with the President's Council, and the Title I District Parent Advisory Council very recently. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we're discussing, communication structures in the district. And one thing that's been very clear to me is that in some places in the district, we haven't done a good job of communicating and explaining the connection between various components that are at play here. One, the science of reading and the HMH curriculum specifically, as well as the connection between the literacy shifts that are happening in New York City that are connected to connected NYC Reads. And some schools have begun hosting parent workshops like the one that was at PS 185. And, going into detail specifically, the connection between the literacy shifts of NYC Reads and the curricular resource that's being used in that district. In this district, it's HMH into reading for grades K-5, and then grades K-2 for the foundational literacy program. Wilson Foundations, Orton Gillingham, really great reading. Someone mentioned Reading Reform earlier as a program that's informed greatly by Orton Gillingham foundational literacy techniques. all District 20 schools implement, one of these approved foundational literacy programs in kindergarten to second grade. But something that we haven't obviously done a really good job of is explaining some of the components around the selection, some of the specific components around the reason why we selected this curriculum. I hear a lot about novel study and reading whole books. It's definitely a concern for me. This is a curriculum that provides a lot of options and choices for engaging in novel study and the reading of whole books. We do have students in our schools reading novels and whole books. So that's something that I feel like we're not doing a good job communicating. That's not getting it across. And so I definitely want to name that, as well as it's a new curriculum, and teachers since the beginning of the year and since last spring have been engaging in like training around getting a new curriculum in place. Principals have been doing the same thing. And having gone through a few curriculum shifts over my career, it's a lot of work. And it's not just is it a lot of work, but it's also a tremendous, it's an impact on a professional, somebody who's been teaching for 10, for 15 years and has been doing things every day, believing and knowing that they were doing the right thing for kids, on the last day of school last year, and then having to come in on the first day this year and do something different, along with an entire citywide initiative, backed by a body of research that's informing the reasons behind it. Teaching is very personal, and it's a labor of love for all of our teachers. Our teachers do an amazing job with the work that they do with our kids. And it's something that we're very mindful of. And I shared this with the parents at PS 185 when they were sharing some of their concerns around the curriculum. This is a huge challenge for teachers, and I'm going to share some celebrations in a second around some of the amazing work that our teachers have been doing with your children in the district. But I feel like it's really important to name that we haven't done a very good job of communicating, what those successes are, what are those things that teachers have been able to do, the breakthroughs that they've made, and the big challenge that it is to take on a new curriculum, implement it, learn it, and figure out how to put in place the pieces that connect to the things that you've always known were good teaching practices, and how to implement them with this new resource. So that's something that I'm really committed to doing. I'm excited to meet with the CC this Friday. We're meeting with the President's Council, Title I District Parent Advisory Council to discuss, different aspects of this curriculum that are really vital to parents. A few have been named today: novel study, assessments, and a variety of other components that we need to do a much better job in being specific and explaining what those things are, how those things are either in place or things that teachers are working on implementing, and how they connect to the literacy shifts in the science of reading. So just a quick review of what the interreading core expectations are from the district level. These are the things that we've communicated to teachers around, what we're really looking for them in terms of implementing the curriculum. One is a shift from this term of fidelity to a term of integrity to the program. And I'll talk about what that means in a second. But, HMH Interreading is a program that was selected for a variety of its components. But one of the benefits of the program is also a potential drawback. It has a lot of resources and a lot of different things that teachers can engage in. And it's really important that teachers are able to focus in on the components that do align to the literacy shifts in New York City, the science of reading, and the goals. So we really wanted to focus on this idea of fidelity being the what, like the use of materials from the curriculum that align to, great appropriateness and alignment to standards, which is our responsibility as a district. But teachers own the how. Like, one thing that we really want to make sure that wasn't lost was that teachers still utilize and implement teaching practices that they know work with kids. Small group instruction, class discussions, partner work, and projects. In alignment to NYC Reads guidance, the one mandate was to follow the sequence of lessons without skipping lessons. Like, this was one component that does match up to the science of reading, specifically Literacy Shift 6, and the alignment of a knowledge building curriculum that builds in complexity. But with autonomy on how to meet all students' needs. So teachers have been engaged in trying out different ways to have the curriculum and the resources meet the needs of their kids. And this is from kindergarten to 8th grade. We have cautioned against the use of DIY or do-it-yourself resources by leveraging the HMH resources to ensure that the materials that they're using are all aligned to the standards. They're grade appropriate for all students. It's a big equity issue. We want to make sure that all students in the fourth grade are engaged in fourth grade materials, that all students in the third grade are engaged in third grade materials, and we don't have students who may be performing below a particular grade level, not ever getting to engage in that grade level material and ever experiencing what the grade level material is that they're currently in. And then finally, you know, a big expectation has been to enhance access by including extension activities. So I heard a lot about, you know, novel studies. You know, that's something that's a priority of ours in the district. So the selection of novels, book clubs, et cetera. This is a curriculum that has a lot of options for teachers to select novels, whole books to use and to read with their kids. It's one of the reasons why we picked it. And then to support high achievers, but also to provide strategic supports and scaffolds to support multilingual learners or English language learners and students with disabilities. So I just selected a few shots of kids as we've been going around, you know, just to kind of illustrate what it looks like when the kids are in the classroom engaging in the curriculum. One is the use of notebooks, but we also use multimedia and technology. So a lot of students are accessing text not just through reading words, but a lot of times they're able to hear it read aloud. There's immersive reader components. There are some technological components that enable students to be able to connect to grade level text. We have a lot of students working in groups and partners. We do focus on using different scaffolds and supports to engage students in the curriculum, but to engage together. One of the big things that we've worked on in the last couple of years was a concept of the hallmarks of advanced literacies. So engaging in student-to-student discussion is a key aspect of the hallmarks of advanced literacies. Really builds language supports for English language learners and for all students. And it's a priority of our teachers. We're really looking for ways to ensure that children are engaging with each other while they're engaging with the curriculum. This is some students using, you know, hard copy materials as well as online. Another example is teachers engaging in small group instruction. So a big aspect of this shift has been the shift away from guided reading and using level text to, you know, using skill-based small group instruction and using decodable text in early grades. So something that continues to be a focus of ours. The materials that we're using are shifting, but the methods for instruction are not. Just another picture of kids sitting and working together. We do engage in partner reading. This is something that is happening in our schools and something that we're continuing to support at the district level with our Learning Lab professional development structure to support teachers in identifying specific aspects of the science of reading that they may be finding challenging, giving them strategies to engage in that level of work. Students do have options in our different literacy center rotations for choices. They do have the opportunity to engage in different activities that are aligned to the science of reading and also provide, you know, choices for our kids. We've leveraged translated materials. We've been using a variety of materials to ensure that all students that speak the more than 70 languages in the district are able to connect with the different texts at the grade level to make sure, again, that we have scaffolds to connect all of our kids to, you know, grade appropriate instruction from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. Just students engaging in some more kind of project display-based activities in the classroom. Just some more group work on a theme lesson. The thing you'll see in the background is a shift in NYC Reads. This is specific to the foundational literacy component. We have shifted to a concept called sound walls. The sound walls are walls that literally show children the mouth shapes that you make when you make different sounds to support children in learning how to form the different sounds that go along with the letters when we get into phonemic awareness. So we've teachers have done an amazing job in this district in a very short period of time, not just learning what these sound walls are, but also beginning to use them with kids. This is a whole class discussion. So we are working with our teachers to examine how we can incorporate not just small group discussions, but also Socratic seminar style discussions from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. just another, looks like another group project. This is just an example of children engaging, just using different scaffolded materials. You'll see that this teacher has, formed color-coded Post-its that they're using to engage in the learning activity. Just some more partner work. This is a school that utilizes different scaffolds to support students in engaging in conversations. They give them guideposts, they give them different sentence starters and frames to support all children in engaging in the conversation. Just another small group activity with the teacher. And a read aloud with the class. I want to say that the teachers in the district have done an amazing job of taking this new resource and implementing it, utilizing the best practices that have always existed. It's not an easy task. I'm incredibly impressed by what I've seen in the schools, and I'm really happy with the level of critical thinking, the level of engagement and thought that I've seen across the schools in the district. So in follow-up meetings, I have planned to, start to highlight some of the breakthroughs and celebrations that a lot of our teachers have been able to find across the grade levels. There's also a lot of challenges that have been named today. Novel study and the reading of books within the curriculum has been a challenge that teachers and principals have, brought to me directly. And we've had some schools be very successful. We've had some schools be really challenged by how to go about doing it. And something that we're going to be providing direct support to targeted schools, as well as all of our 3 to 5 and 6 to 8 teachers through our learning lab on different approaches to incorporating novel study into the curriculum. As far as priority 1, this is our progress monitoring structure for the DCP, or the District Comprehensive Educational Plan. It's aligned to the Chancellor's priority. Priority 1 is all students learn how to read well. We're on track to meet our goal. We have 2 goals: a 5% increase in reading proficiency for our first graders using the Achanes benchmark, and then we have a 5% increase for all students in the ELA assessment. We use iReady to progress monitor that. We also have specific targeted goals for some of our student subgroups, for our students with disabilities, for our English language learners, for our economically disadvantaged students, and for our students in temporary housing. They have bigger increases than the 5%. But I do have reporting on these and at the grade level, which I'll show in a second. I'm happy to share that at the middle of the year this year, we are significantly ahead of our progress that we had made last year in the first grade reading. We're at 61% of our students at or above benchmark. It was 40% at the beginning of the year. This is over a 12% increase from last year. It's significant. Like, there's a lot of progress happening in the early grades, and I attribute it to the amazing implementation by our teachers. They're doing an amazing job. In the January mid-year, this is iReady, so this is in grades 3 to 8. We are on track to meet our goal of a 5% increase. We're at 48% on or above grade level at this point in the year. That's up from 36% at the beginning of this year, and it's a 2% increase from where we were at the same time last year. So we are seeing that overall we are ahead of how we were performing last year. Just some grade level specifics. So in 3rd grade overall, we're up 17%. In 4th grade, we're up 14%. 5th grade, we're up 11%. 6th grade, we're up 7%. 7th grade, we're up 6%. And 8th grade, we're up 5%. So one of the things that we're really kind of looking to do in the second half of the year, a lot of our schools have already engaged in mid-year progress monitoring. administering surveys with parents, with students, with teachers. I myself am working with the district level parent leaders, CEC, President's Council, Title I District Parent Advisory Council, to look at what are the components of this implementation where we're still falling short. And, you know, put in place an action plan to address them. I named a few things that I feel like are already, you know, really important components of this curriculum that have not been well communicated by me, and I own that. And I'm really dedicated to make sure that this gets communicated well and in mediums that are accessible for parents. I know that there's different approaches that, you know, are able to connect with parents, and everybody doesn't kind of connect in the same way. So I'm not just really excited to hear the list, I'm sure a long list of different components of this curriculum rollout that parents need and want more information on, in addition to the things that were shared today around assessment, novel study, and the types of texts and tasks that children are engaging in, but also the assessments. I've heard parents loud and clear on these things, and, you know, I really want to, you know, get a sense of what's going to make sense for our kids, you know, moving forward into next year. So I'm excited to hear the list from President's Council, Title I DPAC, CEC, and work with my team to develop a plan. I plan next month to share what that feedback was with everybody, share what we're going to be putting in place in terms of communication mechanisms, workshops. You know, we can develop content at the district level to support families in, you know, specific aspects. You know, what is interesting and important to District 20 families may not be as important to like another district, and similarly with individual schools. I've been really excited to see individual schools be able to work with parents and share this level of information. Like the PS 185 presentation, I thought it was very thorough, and I thought they did a great job in, you know, 35 minutes of sharing the connections between the literacy shifts and the HMH curriculum. But, you know, it's going to take more, you know, more to ensure that everyone has the, you know, is connected to the full gamut of information of, you know, what's going on, the rationale behind why this is happening, and what we can do to make sure that the implementation of the school is, you know, is improved. So, you know, for March, you know, definitely there was some questions from the Chancellor's Town Hall that were that didn't get answered. So I'll work with the CEC to develop and gather some answers to those and provide a follow-up. Obviously the feedback on the implementation plan, and then, you know, next month also to share, you know, some information about, you know, the professional learning that we're providing at the district level and some of the amazing breakthroughs that some of our teachers have been able to make with this curriculum and NYC Reads. So looking forward to it. That is my presentation, and then we'll be shifting to the Fair Student Funding budget presentation.
So I know we're not going to get through this issue tonight, and I'm not even going to try, but I do want to try and tie in a few of the comments we heard earlier with some of the things you just said and just get you to respond to those. But I do not intend to. Next, I'll defer. If any other council members want to ask questions on.
One quick question.
Go ahead, Kevin. Yep.
I hear that there's an improvement on the proficiency, reading proficiency. I mean, are we using the same testing material to do the evaluation?
Yes, yeah. So we're using the same screeners that we were using last year to measure progress.
And just to comment on that, David, I do think I heard you focusing on beginning of year to middle of year,
Yeah.
but as we all know, things do tend to improve as you go in any given year. You sort of start out kids coming right back into school, and then it's sort of, we've talked about iReady and how it's measured and it's designed to capture that, but I do think you should focus year over year change. Each year we should try to see improvement, and you did touch on that with the 2% overall improvement. So just
yeah, it's the highest we've ever performed at this time of the year since we've instituted the iReady screener.
Okay, gotcha. The big thing we've heard. Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
So, all the parents were asking about the waivers and opting out, and we even brought it up at the town meeting last time. And he was saying that 85% of the district, or just 85% of the particular school passes a particular school, they can opt out.
There hasn't been any exceptions or waivers granted to any schools for the curriculum.
I mean, what's the process?
There's no process as far as I'm aware of. This has been a request that the BSI community has made since June, right? And there's currently no process in place for an exception or a waiver.
what Elizabeth's referring to was First Deputy Chancellor Weisberg did cite the figure 85% proficiency would be a potential benchmark for each
The
school.
particular
Mhm.
Correct.
Or everybody in the school, district school has to reach that before you can opt out.
But by school.
Right.
And that's the proposed, and we're on it. I mean, this is something we follow up with. You know, obviously I hear a lot from BSI and many other schools in the district too. BSI is very well organized, but many other schools and parents you know, we're on it with DOE Central, you know, the staff there that make those decisions. So, I'm as curious as all the parents in here are as to what the process is going to be.
I visited PS 185, they did still have the phonics, which I think was working and is still working. And I believe when we first talked about HMF, you were just saying that it was only a percentage. They don't have to do it for the whole day.
No, it's the literacy curriculum. And all schools, when you refer to the phonics component, that's a curriculum that every single school in the district has had for several years, before HMH.
So they
In kindergarten and second grade only.
David, I want to tie in a couple themes we heard earlier and tonight. Time in the day, time in the week, in the month. How do you respond to that? We hear a lot that, you know, you talk about, oh, there's flexibility. Teachers can adjust the curriculum, but then we hear a lot online and, you know, from teachers that there isn't that much. What's the disconnect?
You prefer it that way?
For what way?
No, that I'm the only one on the camera.
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah, I don't care. They're just laughing because it's funny. Yeah. Oh, there's comments that pop up. Got you. I would have laughed. I would have laughed that I would have laughed in his face. So the question of time has always been a challenge for teachers. There's never been enough time in the day to do what needs to be done. With the implementation of a new curriculum, you're going from how you used to organize your day in many cases to using the same level of time, but now you're implementing different resources in doing so. And when you're learning something new, it's gonna be different. So that's one thing that just, I think across the board for all teachers applies. With regard to flexibility in the pacing, the middle school curriculum into literature is much more straightforward in terms of number of days and periods and time in the window for flexibility. Whereas in elementary school, in kindergarten through fifth grade, the units of study have different lengths. They have different numbers of lessons, and one module may have more flexible time than another module. And that's something that we've been learning as we've been implementing the curriculum. And that's been a challenge. We've been, you know, continuing to get feedback from teachers and from principals around this. And, you know, there has been requests for how do we get more flexibility in time? So we really tried to work with principals, with schools, with teachers around the structures that they have in their schedules. Some of it comes down to scheduling and how schedules can be leveraged to ensure that teachers get the time that they need to do it. There are technical things that can be done where the arrangement of prep periods and how social studies versus literacy, you know, what lessons are being taught today. They're going to take 2 periods versus one that can be done in an isolated period. There's been different things that teachers and principals have looked at in terms of what gets taught in the morning and what gets taught in the afternoon and how that can help support the implementation of a lesson that may take 2 periods in literacy, but I may only need 1 period in math, or I may only need 1 period in social studies. It's just an example, but you know, we've been working with schools to try to find out how much time is supposed to happen. One thing that has been a challenge across the district has been the recommendations of time for students to engage in particular types of activities that align to the science of reading. In many cases where a school has not engaged children in specific activities that do align to the science of reading, and how to embed those while also figuring out how they're going to work with the remaining time that they've had. That's something that some schools who are not accustomed to implementing a foundational literacy program or focusing on the fidelity of it, of its implementation, there's been challenges there. So yeah, but I would attribute in general, I would attribute it to it being a very new thing. And we found that teachers, as time has gone on, they've gotten better at it and better at it. So I feel like as we get into the spring, taking assessment of, what this means for pacing, how many units we're going to do, like these are all things that we're, listening feedback from teachers and from principals to see what makes sense for next year.
Thanks, David. Another one that came up repeatedly was the idea of small group discussion, book club, those type of activities. You highlighted some. Other parents are saying their kids are not doing this kind of stuff. Would that be considered under the HMH curriculum? Is that considered an extension activity, or is that considered sort of integral? And if so, why are we not hearing that all schools are doing it?
It's a great question. I would attribute in general the some schools being able to get to it rather than others to the place that school is in terms of being able to implement. Like we've seen it happen, but in terms of priority, like teachers have been learning how, especially at the middle school level, where the organization and planning may have been around the novel itself in the past, and then connected materials would come in to support the novel itself. The curriculum is arranged around a theme. It does have foundational texts, and then the novels are a component that the teacher can choose, but they also don't have to implement the novels. And there are some classes across the district that don't leverage novel study, nor did they leverage novel study in the past. We didn't want to force a classroom to engage in a novel study if that wasn't something that met the needs of the kids. But at the same time, we wanted to have a curriculum that provided teachers with the option to be able to do so, and the materials to engage them in it. Having teachers get to the place where they found how to do that implementation has been different in different schools. And obviously has come up in this meeting, has come up before. So we are starting to arrange support for schools, because I've had direct conversations with teachers and trying to figure out how to do it. They want to do it, and there are the different aspects of finding out how to do it well. And we've started to, come up with different ways that novel study can be incorporated in middle school classrooms. It doesn't have to be done one way. And there's certain factors that teachers are kind of finding as barriers, and we're going to use our team to support them and try to, kind of get through those barriers and make choices that make sense for them.
Just to help me, a non-practitioner, what would be an example of a barrier to introducing a novel? What would be an example? Just follow up.
A great question. So a common barrier is, when are the kids going to read the book? Frequently the book may be read in class. Entire periods may be spent, reading the book. And that can be a barrier for teachers when they're starting to think about the lessons that connect to the standards and the theme of the unit. And the texts that come along with it. So different schools, there are different ways that you can introduce the novel and have it operate over the course of the unit. You can introduce it at the beginning and have students intermittently read during different periods of the week while the lessons are interspersed. You can have the novel exist at the end of the unit once all of the unit texts have been read, and you can dedicate that period of time just to the novel, and a variety of other ways. You can have the whole class engaged. You can do literature circles where small groups are reading different novels together. You can do book clubs. You can do it in independent reading where only an individual student is reading that book and engaging in those activities. So the curriculum provides teachers with the resources and materials to engage students in those different forums and be able to track that reading. One of the biggest challenges as a middle school teacher is being able to track the reading of the children across the class. If you have 30 different students reading 30 different books, it can be very challenging as a teacher to be able to ensure that that what they're engaging in continues to be at or near great appropriateness. So the curriculum provides teachers with a lot of the materials, but we also have had teachers, express, hey, I found this novel that aligns to the theme, but it's not in the curriculum, but it aligns to the theme and it makes sense, and I'm going to read it with the class, and that's something that the principals and I have felt like was a good decision, and so we found instances where the school has changed. They haven't used the novel from HMH. They used a different novel and they found great success with it. So we encourage that. That's one of the flexibilities. Again, novel study was something that was really important to me in selecting the curriculum. We wanted to make sure that, novels were something that was a tool for teachers to utilize when implementing the curriculum. We also didn't want to force novel study on. Again, our priority was alignment to the standards, great appropriateness, and making sure that ELA curriculum had a diverse body of text that children were engaging in. So they're getting engaged in poetry, that they're getting engaged in nonfiction, literary criticisms, as well as novels. So we see that the curriculum does provide that diversity of resources as well as the novels. So we're really excited. Teachers where teachers have been challenged in implementing it, they are starting to kind of get their sea legs and make selections and starting to engage the kids in. And we're excited to see how that goes, because in year 2, we expect that this is going to be something that they've been able to pilot and try out, and where schools have, priorities in different grade levels, that they're going to be more equipped to be able to do this, from the start of the year.
Just super quick, and then I want to go. I think Tamara had a question. Who approves those novels when it's something not in the curriculum? Who approves if someone?
It's the school decision.
School decision,
Yeah.
principal?
Yeah.
Tamara, did you have a question?
One of my questions, is if you didn't choose, if HMH wasn't chosen, what was like the next curriculum that you would have picked if it, or the chance you would pick if it wasn't this one? Like, was it like a, between this and this one? Because I know there was a number of choices.
It would have been either Expeditionary Learning or Wit and Wisdom. There were 3 choices.
Like things with the parents, like going over the curriculum, what's prepared for and everything, there was a parent aspect of it. Do you have like a number of like how many schools that are actually doing that? Because I'm also hearing that a number of parents have no idea.
I'm hearing the same thing, Tamara. So like, and that's something that, because it's an issue, like it's definitely a priority of mine. What I do know is that some schools have been doing a really good job, and it's become a priority to be able to explain these things. And I'll be honest with you, just as it's new for the teachers and the principal, similarly for your parent support staff, so parent coordinators, and the rest of the staff that is usually charged with pushing out this type of information. The nature of the workshops there's a lot there, and something that I've spoken to Steve a lot about has been, to what level do we need to provide information to families? Because there's a lot of information there. We want to make sure that the level of information that we're providing to families meets the needs. We could talk about the science of reading, the HMH curriculum, its connection to the foundational literacy curriculum, its connection to literacy shifts. There's a lot there. So my immediate purpose right now is to kind of gather the specific things that parents are really asking a lot of questions about.
Elena, please.
And make sure that we're able to get information connected to parents in a way that addresses it, both at the district level, but also most importantly at the school level.
Because I know a lot of them, it's already past their bedtime.
If 7 students or 8 students are telling you that, not per se you, but the superintendent or whoever is behind this, they need help. They need to start reading books, whether it's a novel or whatever it is. There's 5 days in the school week. There's a way that they could implement 3 days for reading a book and interacting with the class, and there's 2 days, or vice versa. There's certain ways that they could do it. There's no reason that they can't do it. And also respect for all. Everybody here came for a reason. So respect for all is, you have to listen to everybody, and there has to be some kind of part where everybody sits down, whether it's the superintendent, whether it's the mayor, whoever it is, and they have to implement everything every child. It's not just a few children that are left behind or behind. There's other people that are progressing and now they're falling back. And then that's a problem.
On Friday, we'll have the district version of exactly what you're talking about. The CEC, President's Council, Title I District Parent Advisory Council, all the elected leaders from all the schools in the district kind of sharing, feedback specifically on this issue so that we can put in place an action plan. Because I agree with you. If folks are standing up here and it's real, like it's valid. What the things that people are bringing to the table today are just as valid as like the numbers on the screen. So it's my job to make sure that we make those connections. So I'm committed to doing it. Yeah.
One last thing I just wanted to connect from the other comments. One thing that I thought was disturbing was the writing that's done. That was a number of for longer writing, actually. And that was one thing you did. I don't think you did address in the prepared comments. Is it fair that now under the HMH curriculum that there's fewer opportunities than there otherwise might have been for sort of opinion-based writing, expository writing, other kinds of fiction and whatnot?
The writing curriculum, it has a writing workshop. It does engage students in the 3 genres of writing: argument, informative, and narrative. I heard parents loud and clear talk about how the level of creative writing that was not happening in their schools is concerning. So that's important. We have had a big focus on the reading curriculum. It has been NYC Reads. So there has been much more of a focus on the reading curriculum than maybe the writing. Something that definitely has been something that's come up with teachers. It's something that we want to support them with. But I would say that there has been a big shift in the nature of writing, in addition to the narrative, argument, and informational writing that students were accustomed to doing. They're still doing those types of writing, but they're also doing a lot of writing in response to reading. And that's the type of writing that they had not been doing as much of historically. And I think that is kind of a place where teachers were getting used to that type of writing in the classroom, and then shifting to the information, argument, and narrative type writing as well was not as much. Like, I'm just suspecting, but I know it's something that teachers have brought up to us. So we want to, again, another topic that not just being able to communicate with families about, but also to support teachers. We have been supporting so much on the reading instruction and how to connect how to connect the curriculum to the kids and just get teachers accustomed to it, that we have not had a huge focus on the writing curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. I think for now that's probably where we should leave it. Fair student funding, the required presentation.
Fair student funding. I'm going to ask. So we're now going to present the annual school budgets engagement session. I am Dr. David Pareto. I'm the superintendent. I'm here with Elba Rodriguez, who is our budget director. She's online. And Elba supports our schools directly with all matters that are related to the budget. So every spring, the Panel for Educational Policy votes on New York City Public Schools school budget allocation formula for the following school year, which is known as Fair Student Funding Formula. In preparation for the event, superintendents and borough-based support staff like Elba present the New York City Public Schools proposed Fair Student Funding budget allocations for fiscal year 2024 to all community and citywide education councils. The purpose of today's presentation is to review the budget and the allocation formula, review Fair Student Funding, and the weights for fiscal year 2025, which aligns with the 2024-2025 school year. This presentation reflects our continued approach to how New York City Public Schools is conducting community engagement around our school budgets as it relates to the Fair Student Funding formula. Our goal is to increase our transparency, ensuring that you, as critical community stakeholders, are made aware of how schools are funded and made aware of the resources available to you to better understand your school budgets. I appreciate you joining the meeting today, and we'll dive into the presentation. Now on to the agenda. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about three main topics today: an overview of this year's overall New York City Public Schools budget, a detailed explanation of the Fair Student Funding formula, and a walkthrough of the new web pages created to increase budget transparency. If you have any questions during the presentation, please direct them to the chat. Or if you're in person, I request to just hold the questions to the end. And I have Elba or some other team members ready to respond to the questions if needed. Questions that we're not able to answer during the presentation will be collected and shared with New York City Public Schools team, who will then respond, and I'll share them back with the group. Additionally, the intention of this session is to collect public comments on the formula for the upcoming school year. We ask that if you have specific feedback on the weights for the Fair Student Funding formula, that you please feel free to share that feedback with budgetpubliccomments@schools.nyc.gov. The New York City Public Schools team will take public comments received at this email address into consideration in the coming weeks. Next slide. So, one final note about the presentation. While I will be providing an overview of our overall New York City Public Schools budget and our district budget, I will not be reviewing individual school budgets. These are accessible on the public website. This slide shows you the steps to find the school budgets from our homepage. I'll give you a minute to use this information to load your school-specific budget if you're interested. And just a note, pre-K centers and charter schools do not have budget reports on the DOE website. Next slide, please. So I'm now going to provide an overview of our overall budget and where the funding comes from. This data is based on the most recent budget included in the mayor's January plan. Our total budget for the 2023-24 school year is $39.3 billion, or about $31,000 per student in our system. New York City provides most of our funding. For the 23-24 school year, the city contributed $21 billion, or 52% of our total budget. Most of our city funding comes from what we call city tax levy dollars. City tax levy funds are drawn from local taxes, so including property taxes, sale taxes, and personal income taxes. Every year, the mayor proposes the amount of city tax levy funding we get, and the city council must pass the budget into law before the new fiscal year begins on July 1. 14 billion, or 36%, comes from New York State funding. New York State is our second largest source of funding. Every year, the governor proposes the amount of state funding that we will get, mainly based on the number and types of students enrolled in our schools. And then the state legislature must pass the budget into law before the new fiscal year begins on May 1st. Funding generally comes from income and corporate taxes, as well as property and sales tax. Federal funding comprises a total of $4 billion, or 11% of our funding for this school year. The federal government is our third largest source of funding. Every year, Congress proposes a budget, and the president must sign the budget into law in advance of the new fiscal year, which begins on October 1st. The Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, provides the rules for allocating most of the federal funding we receive. Next slide, please. In the previous slide, I covered an overview of where New York City Public Schools receives its funding from, and now we will shift into how that funding is spent in our schools and across our system. Within our budget, we have mandated costs that must be covered annually, including employee benefits, pension, and debts, as well as state mandated payments to charter schools, non-public and contract schools. This pie chart represents the major costs. I'll provide a brief explanation of each section. We'll begin with the early childhood, located toward the bottom right-hand side of the pie chart. So we allocate $2 billion to support early childhood, that's birth to 5, across the city. Then for employee benefits, pension, and debt, this $10.8 billion pays for healthcare and other employee benefits, pension payments for staff, and debt payments on loans for school construction and upgrades. For charters, we allocate 8%, or $3 billion for charter schools, as mandated by state law. For non-public and contract schools, non-public and contract school payments cover schools and programs that educate New York City students, but are not directly run by the New York City Department of Education. The $2.6 billion includes students with disabilities attending specialized schools, supplemental services to students attending non-public schools. Then superintendent and field offices and the central offices combined comprise approximately 1.5% of our overall budget. The school operations section pays for non-instructional services that students receive. The 4.8 billion is used to pay for costs including free breakfast and lunch available to all students, bus routes, loan payments on buildings. This is new construction and renovations, and this is similar to a mortgage payment. Lastly, the largest proportion of our budget is allocated toward K-12 schools and instruction. We allocate $15.2 billion, or 39% of the overall budget, annually to support our schools, including general education teachers, guidance counselors, deans, health and school climate initiatives such as gym teachers, Respect for All Week, and climate action days, special education, after-school activities, summer school, and other operating expenses. This also includes funding for textbooks, computers, materials, and supplies. Okay, now transitioning from citywide view, we can look at the budget and funding breakdown for the district. So this will not cover the breakdown for each school, but you can find it on the New York City Public Schools website by following the directions I shared at the beginning of the session. But as you can see, in District 20, we have a $678 million budget across our 41 pre-K to 12 schools that serve 32,000 students, including the pre-K centers. This does not include District 75, since those programs are not funded through fair student funding. School budgets are comprised of a mix of fair student funding and other funding sources. And I'm going to drop something in the chat just to be able to locate the school budgets. All right. I've dropped the directions for how to go on the website and then be able to access individual school budgets. Next slide, please. So who decides how the money is spent at the school level? Once the funding is in place in school budgets, principals are responsible for the funds allocated to schools and have a great deal of flexibility in how they spend the funding. These choices are made in partnership with the school leadership team, or SLTs. As principals and SLTs create the school's comprehensive educational plan, or CEP, they identify school-specific instructional needs and priorities and align the school budget to this plan. Principals work with their SLTs to create the school budget in alignment to the goals and instructional priorities outlined in the CEP. Superintendents, like myself, supervise all principals in our district through this process and must approve all school budgets and their alignment with the school CEP. Next slide. All right, we'll go now a little more in depth into what fair student funding is. So fair student funding is the largest funding stream that we provide to schools. It accounts for nearly 2/3 of most K-12 New York City public school budgets. As discussed on the previous slide, the allocation of fair student funding provided to schools is based on the number of students enrolled at each school and the specific needs of those students. We make these calculations based on our fair student funding formula, which calculates how we distribute this overall pot of money to schools. Within the formula, students with needs that require more support receive more funding in alignment with those needs. In many cases, schools also receive funding from other funding streams, including federal funding streams like Title I, Title III, IDEA, which is funding focused on special education, or other targeted allocations for specific initiatives. These pots make up the remaining funding within the overall school budget. In the current school year, this is the final year of federal pandemic era funding. $2 billion of federal stimulus funds expire in the current year. New York City Public Schools is working with partners at the city's Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, to address the cliff being caused by these expiring dollars. As a note, charter schools, 3K and pre-K and D75 programs are funded outside of the fair student funding formula. Additionally, mandated IEP-related services, including speech teachers, occupational therapists, and physical therapists, as well as one-to-one paraprofessionals, are also funded outside of the fair student funding formula. Again, the money provided to schools from the fair student funding allocation provides principals with significant flexibility, working in partnership with the SLT to utilize the funding to design instructional programs tailored to meet the needs of their students within the school community. Funding from the Fair Student Funding allocation provides for each school's basic instructional program and classroom services. This funding can be used to pay for classroom teachers, including arts, gym, and cluster teachers at the elementary level, as well as school leadership, guidance counselors, social workers, and administrators, and pupil support staff. Additionally, the Fair Student Funding allocation can pay for after-school programs, tutoring and intervention programs, as well as teacher absence coverages and classroom resources and materials. Next slide, please. I now want to further clarify some of what we've already discussed today. So through the presentation, I've been talking about Fair Student Funding and the Fair Student Funding formula. When I say Fair Student Funding, we're talking about the money that is allocated to K-12 schools from this large pot, not including pre-K centers or D75 programs. This year, Fair Student Funding is $7 billion. The Fair Student Funding formula is the method by which we decide how to allocate the funding to schools. This slide outlines the formula and how we utilize the formula to calculate the total amount of Fair Student Funding that each school receives. I'm going to walk through how we utilize the formula to determine how much Fair Student Funding each school receives and how we determine that specific dollar amount. Off the top, each school receives a foundational amount which is provided to every school, regardless of the number of students that the school serves. This covers per school overhead costs such as the principal and school secretary. Then we calculate the remainder of the Fair Student Funding by allocating a base amount for each student, which is per capita, and then allocating additional funding based on each student's identified educational needs and instructional programs. It is in this part of the formula that we take into account the weights that we have been referring to throughout the presentation. We then add funding to the formula for collective bargaining related costs, which is contractual pay increases for school staff. This ensures schools can afford to keep up with growing salary costs. Given the new set of collective bargaining agreements, we are looking at ways to update the formula for collective bargaining. On the next slide, we'll dive more deeply into the weights that we utilize to determine the specific dollar amount that we allocate per student so that you can have a clear understanding of what goes into this part of the formula. I also want to pause here to reiterate, within the formula, we take the time to examine the individual needs of each student to determine funding allocations. We make these individualized calculations for each student aligned to their individual and specific needs and educational program to determine how much funding would be provided to that school for each student. Next slide, please. So this chart shows the proposed weights for next school year. That means if it's approved by the Panel for Educational Policy in April, these weights will be used to calculate the school's Fair Student Funding allocation for the 24-25 school year. This slide displays the weights for the current school year, 2023-2024, which are proposed to be maintained for next year. Here you can see the different types of weights that students can be eligible to receive based on their instructional needs or their academic programs. To more deeply understand the weights that we use to calculate the last part of the formula from the previous slide, the number of students per FSF category and their FSF weighted needs. Each student's weighted need is determined by the formula. So I'll go through the different weights on the slide. In this school year, the base weight of 1 was equal to about $4,237 per student. This per capita fund amount, it's adjusted annually to reflect changes to the citywide average teacher salary. The basic grade weight is allocated to schools for all students on the audited register, that's the October 31st register, and is calculated by considering instructional programming requirements by student grade level with distinct weights for K-5, 6-8, and 9-12. Funding for academic intervention services, or AIS, is determined by student academic performance when a student enters a school, using test scores from their prior year. For schools where students do not have incoming test scores in the lower grades, such as before students begin taking tests or if they do not have prior test scores, we provide funding based on a student's poverty level. Funding for special education is determined by the percentage of time students spend receiving special education services. For example, we have one weight for students receiving services for less than 20% of their week, another weight funding students receiving part-time services for up to 59% of their week, and a final weight for students receiving more than 60% of their time receiving special education services. These special education weights are then also broken down by student grade level, with the specific weighting value, again, determined based on the cost of providing the instructional program. We also provide supplemental funding that supports students who have been declassified as special education students. This funding supports students in their first year transitioning out of special education services through the post-IEP transitional support weight. Funding for English language learners is allocated based on student grade level, reflecting mandated instructional services, including bilingual and ENL instructional programming. Additionally, we have weights for former Ls who have achieved proficiency within the last 2 years, which is indicated using the state designated term commanding. We also provide funding for Ls with students with interrupted formal education or SIFE status. Students with this classification receive their respective L weight in addition to the SIFE weight. We also have another category of weights for portfolio high schools. These weights are provided to schools based on the number of students who are involved in these academic programs within each high school. Career and technical weights have different tiers based on the type of career preparation program. Programs that require more resources such as nursing, agricultural and veterinary, aviation technology, automotive, culinary, require industry-specific equipment, higher level of consumable supplies and materials, student internship requirements that are integral to the program of study, and highly specialized and ongoing industry training for teachers have higher weights to support that instructional programming. There are also separate weights for students in specialized academic or specialized audition schools and for students attending transfer schools. The transfer school weight is broken out into 2 tiers based on students' age and credit accumulation. Transfer school students who are further behind in credits at the time of admission receive a higher weight. Only students attending high schools are eligible for these portfolio weights. Funding for students in temporary housing was introduced in the current school year, marking a significant shift in how we allocate resources to our students, with the specific focus on supporting students who reside in temporary housing. This has an impact on our asylum-seeking families who are living in temporary housing, providing additional resources to the schools enrolling STH population. Funding for the concentration of needs weight provides additional funding to schools with high populations of students with significant needs. This weight was also introduced in the current school year. Research shows that schools that serve higher concentrations of students with high needs require additional resources to provide robust education and appropriate resources and supports to their students. The concentration weight includes factors for proportion of students who are in poverty, students with disabilities, students who are in temporary housing, students residing in foster care, English language learners, and students with low performance as key indicators of concentration of need. Next slide, please. In this school year, New York City Public Schools added a new FSF weight to support students in temporary housing, which is proposed to continue in 2024-2025. Why this weight? So research shows that the situations faced by students in temporary housing create significant challenges to student success. How the weight works. Weight of 0.12 times the FSF per capita for the number of students in temporary housing in the school in the prior year. Additionally, we're proposing to continue the weight established this school year to support students with higher percentages of student need, the concentration weight. Why this weight? Having high concentrations of needy pupils has a negative impact on student achievement. How the weight works, schools are ranked based on their proportion of student needs. Students with disabilities, English language learners, students living in poverty, students in temporary housing, and others. Schools with the highest average student need are divided into 3 categories: Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Schools outside of the highest concentration receive no funding. Students attending schools in Tier 1 receive a weight of 0.04, Tier 2 is 0.08, and Tier 3 is 0.12. Concentration weight times the school's average need for the prior school year times the register for the school year. Next slide, please. So we just took a look at all the weights that students could be eligible to receive within Fair Student Funding. If we're calculating that formula for each school, we take into account the instructional needs of each individual student within the school as we determine schools' overall budget allocations. In this slide, we'll take a look at how each student's calculation is determined. The different types of weights are indicated by color on the right side of the slide. In order to determine the weight for each student, we evaluate their eligibility for the weight based on data in the New York City public school system that stores key information about students. I'll walk you through the process for how Fair Student Funding would be allocated for two students, Ava and Miles, through the Fair Student Funding formula. So Ava and Miles are two students who attend a school in our district. Ava is a second grader, Miles is a sixth grader. The orange section shows the grade weight that they first receive. Because Ava's in second grade, she's entitled to the K-5 grade weight of 1. Again, shown on the left graph in orange. Since Miles is a sixth grader, he's entitled to the grade weight of 1.08. If they were a high school student, they would receive a weight of 1.03. The navy blue section shows the special education weight. Both students are students with disabilities requiring special education classroom instructional services. Special education teacher support services or SETS, special class, or ICT or integrated co-teaching. Ava's individualized education program states that less than 60% of Ava's instructional program is spent in an ICT setting. I'm sorry, more than 60% is spent in ICT. Therefore, Ava's entitled to the full-time, more inclusive special education weight of 1.74, which is shown in navy blue on the left. Miles's IEP requires less than 20% of Miles' instructional program to be in an IEP setting. Therefore, Miles is entitled to less than 20% of the low intensity special education weight, which is 0.56. So the full-time allocation is 1.74. The low intensity weight is 0.56, and this is shown in blue on the right. Both Ava and Miles are classified as English language learners, which is shown in yellow. Ava's elementary school former multilingual learner who tested out of L status within the last 2 years. Because New York State requires 2 additional years of English as a new language service for former Ls, Ava is entitled to the K-5 ENL weight of 0.13. Miles is also a multilingual learner. Miles is enrolled in a bilingual program at his middle school. The school has appropriately coded Miles as enrolled in a bilingual program in New York City Public Schools scheduling system. As such, Miles is entitled to the 6 to 8 bilingual weight of 0.55. Both Ava and Miles are entitled to Academic Intervention Services, or AIS, which is shown in red. Ava is a student in poverty and therefore is entitled to the Academic Intervention weight of 0.12, which is shown in red on the left. Miles is a student who entered the school in 6th grade with 5th grade test scores that were below proficiency. As a result, he is entitled to the AIS weight of 0.35, shown in red on the right. Both Ava and Miles are students in temporary housing, which is shown in green. As such, they both receive the STH weight of 0.12. Both Ava and Miles attend schools with high concentrations of student needs, shown in pink. Ava attends a tier 3 school, the highest concentration of need, and is entitled to a weight of 0.12. Miles attends a school with a lower concentration of need, which does not receive the weight. The concentration of needs is shown in the pink bar at the top. When you add all the pieces together, Ava's allocation through the Fair Student Funding formula would total a weight of 3.23, while Miles's allocation would total 2.70. Because each weight of 1 is equal to $4,237, Ava's weight of 3.23 is equal to approximately $13,686, while Miles's weight of 2.66 is equal to approximately $11,270 under the Fair Student Funding formula. Next slide. You can find the following online on the New York City website's Info Hub under reports and then financial data and reports. Detailed information about each and every school budget allocation in the form of school allocation memoranda or SAMs. A summary of each school's total and Fair Student Funding budget along with student and staff counts. A programmatic guide to Fair Student Funding, as well as how the Fair Student Funding allocation is calculated for each school. And you can find the following online on each individual school webpage under reports, budget, and finances. And those are in the directions that I put up in the chat earlier. Detailed information on the school's budget based on the different types of funding schools receive, and detailed information as to how the principal has budgeted for the current school year, including the number of staff positions and other planned spending. Next slide, please. So the budgeting timeline in February and March, given initial budget estimates of city and state revenue, New York City Public Schools superintendents present the CEC with the proposed fair student funding weights for the coming school year. That's this presentation. In April, the panel for educational policy votes on the proposed fair student funding weights for the coming school year. In late spring, New York City Public Schools will release budget allocations to schools. In June, principals, along with the SLTs, propose budgets for the coming year. In July, myself and my team certify the alignment between school budgets and the comprehensive educational plan for the upcoming year. In September, the new school year begins. Next slide. In addition to the current web pages detailed each school's Galaxy allocations and budget summary, a new school budget at a glance brings together data on student enrollment, demographics, budget allocations, and use of funds. The new look also compares school demographic information to citywide averages. Under K-12 funding for the school, you can see the school budget allocations rolled up into major funding categories. You can also see how each of these is a share of the school's budget. For this school, for student funding makes up 74% of the budget. Under K-12 spending for the school, you can see how the budget summary rolled up into spending categories: teachers, other salaries, employee benefits, and non-salaries. This is also known as OTPS, or other than personnel funding, so spending. So this is supplies, materials, books, etc. Next slide. All public comments will be received and reviewed by New York City Public Schools teams. Public questions and comments related to the Fair Student Funding Formula will be posted on the Panel for Educational Policy website. Analysis and response of each relevant question and comment will be available for review on the Fair Student Funding website in advance of the April 17th vote. Comments and questions may be directed to the following email address or phone number by April 16th, 2024. And I'll drop the number and the email address into the chat. I thank you tremendously for your time and attention. Thank you for sharing your questions in advance through the presentation in the chat, or in the future. We'll be gathering any unanswered questions and sharing back responses within a few days. If you have any additional questions that I can support in answering, please reach out to me or my team at the district office. And thank you again.
Thanks, David.
Yep.
I want to try to hit a couple of these specifically on the fair student funding in the chat. As you mentioned, there's one comment: we have no input on the weights. What's the point of it being explained? And then just want to understand the process. Could you share about the weights, how they're created, who approves them?
The weights are created every year by the DOE team, and they're approved by the Panel for Educational Policy. So the Panel for Educational Policy is the body that does approve all citywide components, including the annual fair student funding allocation. In this presentation, part of this presentation, the purpose is to present what the proposed weights are for next year and to elicit public comment. So if any community members, parents have requests, feedback, anything regarding the Fair Student Funding Formula, to please provide them to budget public comments at schools.nyc.gov or call 212-374-6754. That's the mechanism for community members to provide comment and feedback on the Fair Student Funding, especially the weights.
Thank you. And then a question: can we have the slides?
The slides are publicly posted on the DOE website, so I can send them. We can also download them and send them to the council, and they can be distributed
on the District 20 website.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those look like the only two questions. Any council members have questions on fair student funding?
I do.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I know question might be asked, but I see those like a 0.12 for certain things. I mean, how does that come up? Is there any reason behind it, and who decide?
The different level of the weights is determined based off of student need. So so in the presentation before, describe the different categories of students and what those weights are. The DOE team proposes those weights every year, and then the panel approves or doesn't approve them. So this information session is to get feedback on like public's feelings around what those weights are.
I mean, is there any like a criteria or guidelines to come up with what to guide this?
What guides it is the student's demographic status. So whether a student's in temporary housing, whether they're a student who's living in poverty, whether they're a student that's performing below grade level, what grade they're in, those are the things that drive what the weights are. But the actual like what determines the actual weight itself for those different categories is determined by the finance team in New York City Public Schools and proposed to the panel.
Council members, any other questions on fair student funding? Good. Okay. Good, David?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent. You can mute it now. I'll take over. Right. Thanks, Superintendent Preto, for your report tonight. Let's move right along to the second public speaking session for individuals who have signed up online. Same rules apply as before, 2.5 minutes. The first one is Julie Cheap. Julie, are you still there?
Yes,
And
I'm
can
here.
you hear me? Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead. 2.5 minutes.
Hi, I just wanted to kind of voice my concerns that I've experienced with my kids. I have a 5th grader and a 3rd grader at PS 185 and a pre-K student at Our Saviors Lutheran Preschool. I have seen my children's writing work go from pretty phenomenal and frankly kind of shocking. I could not believe what they were capable of. And with this new curriculum, they don't have the opportunity to do this excellent writing that they were doing last year. I appreciate that there seems to be the belief that there's flexibility in the curriculum and that the curriculum is new. And I'm hearing all of the sort of reasons that Dr. Preto is giving for how this curriculum is better. But in my opinion, if they are only given a small box to write in, they only have to write short answers, it's just not going to produce the same level of excellent writing that kids are capable of. And I think that you're doing a disservice to our students by implementing this into middle school. In middle school, they have to get ready for high school. In high school, they have to get ready for college and then for the working world. There has to be a point at which children are challenged. They have to learn to have stamina to read books, respond to those books with their original ideas in longer form essays than what this curriculum is focusing on. I don't know that I really have anything new to say in addition to what a lot of the other parents have spoken about tonight. And I just kind of want to second what we've been hearing all night long. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Satesh Shah.
Yep, I'm here. Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Satesh Shah. I have 2 kids. A young one at PS 682 as a kindergartner in Touts, and a 6th grader at Arts Off 3rd, MS 936. So first on kindergarten, the removal of playtime outside of lunch, that additional playtime has been replaced with some sort of curriculum-based play, which makes no sense. Kids that young will inevitably have pent-up energy that needs to be expended, whether it's being given dedicated time at certain playstations or in the classroom or outside, weather permitting. It can only help them regain their focus, when coursework resumes in class. And when you also take into account children with hyperactivity issues and how it impacts them, the additional playtime needs to be reinstituted. As for my 6th grader, and it is the subject everyone's been talking about, which is the reading curriculum, the HMH curriculum. And my daughter's obviously started 6th grade this year, and she read more books in the summer than they have so far this year. Everyone understands that and everyone knows that. And, reading a full novel will provoke discussion, analysis, growth in their thinking, and even give opportunity to kids who don't really enjoy reading a chance to like it. these kids are expected to learn how to write and submit essays as well. And, reading books, not excerpts of stories, will help them form and construct ideas, which will lead to better writing. And when you think about it, from this point forward, writing will be a main part of their education and their young adult portion of their life. High school and college applications, you're talking about reading can only help them, but it can help them write as well. And to not include full book reading to help them advance their reading and their writing, it's going to hurt them going forward. And it's educational malpractice. It needs to be reversed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Diana Feinschenker.
Let me find someone to read it a lot.
Is Diana, are you? I don't see Diana online. Okay. After that, we have Kiera.
New Year?
Yeah.
That would be
Thank
me.
you.
Yes, hi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm a District 20 parent. I have 2 graduates of BSI who are currently at Brooklyn Tech, and I have a 5th grader who's still at BSI. I also have a PhD in philosophy and education from Teachers College. I have over 20 years of teaching experience in elementary school, preschool, undergraduate, and graduate school. And I listened to David Preto's presentation of the HMH curriculum. And I don't think the communication is the issue here. I think it's maybe more a bit of listening comprehension, and maybe some fundamental misunderstandings. In your presentation, you talked about equity, and you mentioned as an example that all 4th graders should be engaged in, say, 4th grade level material. So for students who weren't at grade level before, the data that you cited in your presentation looks really exciting. And the problem here that I'm seeing isn't with the schools who needed this curriculum, but with the schools who don't need it and didn't need it, like BSI, right? We're asking for an exemption from into reading and into writing. And Mr. Preto, respectfully, I feel like this is a fundamental misrepresentation of the term equity, right? You're talking about equality, like that idea that every student receive the same thing in order to make things fair, but equity is different, and equity is each student getting what they need. And that is demonstrated, at least in part, by the fair student funding weighted model, right? Every student's getting something more of what they actually need. Just like not every student has the same needs, not every school has the same needs as every other. I wouldn't want every single school to use the BSI curriculum if it doesn't meet their needs. So it seems pretty disrespectful to the needs of our students to sort of foist the HMH curriculum on them when they already exceed the state requirements. They're already doing what you want them to do. Gifted and talented schools just simply have different requirements, and they deserve a curriculum that's been developed for them, which is already proven to work. So I'll quote Thomas Bertram Lance here: "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." And I'm all set. Thanks.
Thank you. I believe, just back to the previous speaker, I believe we have Diana now in the room. Diana, can you hear me? And you can speak if you're ready. Diana Feinschenker, you can unmute. We'll move on. We can come back to Diana.
No, I'm sorry. I was waiting for a few hours to get on, then I had to go home, and now I just logged on, so now I'm back.
Go ahead.
So I'm so sorry. I don't have my prepared notes with me, so this speech is not going to be, my 2 minutes are not going to be as polished as they otherwise would have been. So my name is Diana Feinschenker, and my child, Ariel Rubenstein, is a 6th grader at BSI. I believe that HMI violates a child's rights to a sound and basic education. And there are 3 reasons. The first reason, I'm sorry. The first reason is that HMI does not encourage literacy. Students who are good readers are not met where they're at and are not given the opportunities to read full novels. The second reason is that The second reason is that literacy concepts are explained in the abstract. For example, the questions will ask, what is climax? Instead of exploring climax and how the author builds to climax in the context of a novel. The second point is that HMI offers insufficient writing opportunities. I'm an attorney and I write for a living, and I know that the essential elements of good writing is number one, planning, number two, editing, and number three, refining. The students are not given any opportunity to do this. What I've noticed is that students plan for writing assignments with a computer program that asks them for simple prompts instead of getting the opportunity to plan and execute grade appropriate pieces of writing. The third way in which HMI is lacking is that it tests concepts that it doesn't teach. For example, students are tested routinely on grammar, but they are not actually taught grammar as part of the curriculum. The fourth issue with HMA is that it inappropriately relies on the computer as a resource. Instead of given a novel and a pad and a pen of paper, students do a large amount of their work in a computer program.
You're at time, speaker.
Okay.
You can wrap up super quick if you want. Yep.
Okay. The teacher mostly monitors the Google Classroom instead of engaging with students and giving them meaningful feedback on their work.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Frances Brown from State Senator Iwan Chu's office. Frances, would you like to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi everyone. My name is Frances Brown. I'm here from Senator Iwan Chu's office. I'm grateful to be here and hearing all of your feedback on all of the fair funding on the fair funding formula as well as HMH. And I will bring that back to the senator. I just wanted to also let you I also wanted to wish you all that celebrate a happy and prosperous Lunar New Year as it comes up this week. We have a number of events coming up in the district and wanted to make sure to invite you all to come out and celebrate Lunar New Year. I will post the posters and the flyers in the chat so that you can see it and so that Kevin also has access. Also wanted to let you all know that there is tax prep help available every Sunday from now through April at Homecrest that we are sponsoring. And if you're having any issues with oath, we will have a representative in the office at the end of February. There will be posters for those as well in the chat. Thank you all for having us tonight.
Thank you. Next speaker is Yifeng Chen. Yifeng, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yifeng Chen. I have 3 kids. One is in District 21 and 2 is in District 20. One is attending PS 185, the other Our Savior's Lutheran Preschool. So first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Superintendent Dr. Prado for visiting PS 185 and participating in the session on the HMH curriculum, as well as addressing questions and concerns from parents. Walking out from the meeting, I have to confess that I feel more comfortable with the curriculum. Our district is home to students and parents from diverse cultural and economic backgrounds. I appreciate how the HMH curriculum can support English learners in developing their reading skills. However, I also recognize that children from families with a higher economic status often have advanced reading abilities, and the HMH curriculum may not fully meet their needs. It's clear that a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't apply in this case. So in this context, I hope there are opportunities for flexibility and exemption for schools such as BSI 187, maybe even 185. We should allow principals and teachers to tailor the curriculum to better suit the needs of individual students. Furthermore, I understand that integrating the HMH curriculum alongside other non-established curriculum can present challenges. Learning to teach a new curriculum and simultaneously learning alongside with our student will undoubtedly require some time to adjust. As an English learner myself, English is my second language, and currently work in the data mining field. The data from last Friday's section looks somewhat promising to me, and I believe with time, more English language learners can benefit from HMH curriculum. But Dr. Prato, please allow exemptions for schools like BSI from the HMH curriculum if the
You're at time, Yifeng.
principals of the school wish to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ethan. Ethan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ethan Zubman, and I am a sixth grade student at BSI. I miss reading whole novels and discussing them in class like we did in elementary school. Now middle school, we just read excerpts from books and we are asked like really easy questions about them, like which you can infer from like I could infer in like fourth grade. We might get the wrong idea about the actual book, and we may not want to read it in the future because we didn't like that one part, or we can completely misunderstand the message, and because we can only read one page from a book like The Breadwinner Setting, because we recently read an excerpt from that. You can't get the point of an idea of a book unless you actually read the whole book. So when you're reading an excerpt of it, it's kind of just pointless. Like, it doesn't really help into your education. You need to read like entire books, and if you have a teacher to like guide you and your classmates and discuss the book with you, it makes you want to read the book more and read other books more. In regards to writing, I feel like we're constantly studying to test, and it's like all like drill, and there's not much actual learning. I miss assignments that made me think like deeper and do outside research about like the book or like a part of a book or like a chapter, say. And it also and I miss having it like connect to other subjects like social studies. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Steve Mahoney, and I believe he's in attendance. Kevin, can you get him on camera? Say what again? Yeah, sure. Steve, this will be your, if you can just come to that, you mind just stepping
I'll
up?
try to project my voice. I just want to comment on a different subject. Our Chancellor's Town Hall meeting that we had back on the 23rd of January. I was a little disappointed. Of course, if the visit is once every 2 years to the 32 CECs, and I think the time frame was about an hour. So that's a little disappointing. The town halls that I've partook in and have seen seem to be a little bit longer. And also with the questions. I personally sent in 2 questions. I kept them simple. One was Chancellor's email address, just like Ms. Porter had, an email address to get in touch with. And the second is in the Turning 5 program with our District 75 children, how come they don't make 10 choices? Because we need some transparency. Where are these schools located? And I want to tip my hat to the chancellor, because he has provided the addresses here in District 20. So that's just basically it. And I did hear something that in March, these questions may be answered. It just seems for two simple questions, it's a bit long to wait. Thank you.
Thanks. And I believe our and then next, and I believe final speaker is Audrey Elias.
I'm still here.
Go ahead.
I'm a former teacher at BSI up through last year, and now I'm teaching for the New York City Department of Home Instruction, which is, let me see, HMH for a variety of grades because so many schools are using it. And I have deep concerns about this curriculum. It's not just bad for BSI and Krista McCullough. I think it's bad for all kids. It will not help children be motivated to learn to read because the whole joy of reading has been sucked out of it. It will not help them learn the power of writing and the joy of expressing their thoughts with precision and grace, the way we used to be able to do at BSI. It will only teach them that reading and writing are boring. And the problem is, once that attitude is actively acquired by children, it's really hard. Parents can put books into their hands as much as they want to. And that attitude will like, nope, I'm just going to play on the computer. It's really appalling. Yes, our kids need phonics in the young grades, but they don't need interreading and these other packaged curriculums. They are dumbed down insults to all of our children, not just gifted and talented kids, but all kids, because it ignores what they are capable of.
Thank you. Michelle Magnus.
Okay. Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So, I mean, my co-president also kind of thanked Dr. Preto, so I want to thank again for coming out and supporting our school and hearing our parent concerns. So I'm just going to read my statement. This central DOE mandate is a prime example of lawmakers and leaders passing laws that they cannot properly fund. This was such a poor rollout of a new curriculum. Why isn't the DOE putting more funding into the training of teachers in the science of reading rather than in a curriculum? In a year or so, we will have a new mayor, new chancellor, new leaders, and possibly a new curriculum. If our lawmakers and leaders truly believe in this philosophy of teaching reading, then shouldn't we better invest taxpayer dollars into properly training our teachers in the philosophy and not a curriculum? Then they can implement this philosophy in any curriculum. This also provides more stability for students if this mandate continues. On another note, I challenge parents to be more aware of all the lawmakers that are voted in because these mandates came down from the top. So when you go vote for your next council member, state assembly, and senate, and your mayor, think about what they stand and believe in. Lawmakers and staff from their offices here tonight, think about when you pass laws, does it make sense when you don't have funding or enforcement to properly execute it? Lastly, I strongly encourage our DOE to reconsider rolling out an into literature mandate or any curriculum mandate in the middle school. For students to not develop the stamina and apply these skills in a whole text on a more regular basis just seems like we are setting them up for failure. I am hoping schools will have the option to pick a curriculum that fits the needs of their students, especially in the middle schools. To go from reading whole text all year to passages and one or two just seems sad, boring, and not engaging these creative minds. On a personal note, I have a K and 1 student and a 5th grader. I'm not saying it into reading might not work for a majority of the DOE population, which is low income children. My son in kindergarten actually is engaging us in the central idea that he's learned from into reading. I just don't think this curriculum needs to move forward after K-5. I do feel like it's limiting and it's not going to create some creative minds that take them to the next level.
Thanks, you're
And so,
at time.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Kevin, that's everyone, right? Okay, thanks. We are now going to move on to the resolution on the agenda. John, did you want to present that?
Okay.
Kevin, can you share this? Are you in a position to share the screen? Kevin's going to share the resolution and Councilmember John Riccatoni will introduce it.
Resolution in regards to New York City Public Schools website compliance with local law 51. As we were doing research and our own investigation on bullying, we researched local law 51, which was voted in by New York City Council at this time. New York City Public Schools did fail to comply with local law 51 as they are mandated to post on New York City Public Schools website information on student-to-student bullying, harassment, intimidation, and discriminations 2 times a year, which would be May 31st and November 30th. New York City Public Schools did not update the info at this time, May 31st, 2023 and November 30th, 2023. And it needs to be updated.
Great, thanks. I can take that back. I just wanted to get you on the speaker.
Thank you.
Oh, I was wondering why.
Yeah. Council members, does anyone have any questions or want to make any comments about the resolution? Okay. Is there a motion to vote on this resolution? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Joyce, can you take a roll call vote on this to approve this resolution?
We're gonna vote for resolution for NYCPS website compliance with the local law 51 on bullying reporting. Steve,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Elizabeth? Yes. Joyce? Yes. Meikwan?
Mei Fang, can you hear?
Because I didn't turn on my mic. Can you hear online?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Mei Fang, what's the vote on the, sorry, you might not be able to hear because my computer, Joyce, why don't you, can you unmute?
I can hear Joyce well.
You can, okay. Mei Fang, we're just taking the vote on the resolution. So what's,
So vote.
Okay.
You vote yes or no?
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Remy?
you. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yanqing? Yes. Maya? Do it online?
Yes.
Thank you. Kamala? Yeah. Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, we got 10 yes, resolution is passed.
great, thanks. Last order of business for the calendar meeting is to approve the minutes, the January calendar meeting minutes. Kevin, can you share those, please? So everyone, council members, please review the minutes. If you have any changes, please speak up. Okay, any changes to the minutes for the January calendar meeting? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. Is there a motion to adjourn the February calendar meeting?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?